Okay, we're here for the special session of the BPU Policy Committee, February 16th at 9 a.m. And I'd like to call this session to order. Roll call there, Angie.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
Groneman,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
have a quorum.
Turn it over to our chairman, Miss Rose Mulvaney Henry.
Chairwoman, Mr. Groneman,
Chairwoman.
chairwoman,
Chairperson.
chairperson. Thank you. Where do we leave off, folks? I believe that's where we began. Last meeting, so that's always helpful. Why we're spending all the time, right?
Generation. That had this
Well, I was telling, Lori on the elevator, I should have brought mine in, I left it at home. I got a ton of stuff, I got approved and other. Left it home. I'll be busy late this evening, clearing out stuff upstairs.
Um. So do we, on the first paragraph of 5.03, do we think that we are, do we think we are? I mean, I know we talked about potentially putting in some exceptions there, last time. But I mean, I don't think, certainly we did not develop the exceptions, but I guess the question back for the committee. Do we need to discuss those exceptions and potentially assisting staff in developing language there, or what do you guys think?
It seemed to me, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong here. Even though it felt to me like it actually falls into three pretty neat categories. Most of the time, it's that fee that's listed. There is the provision if it's a vacancy, and then there's the provision where you're looking for like utility customers. Would it be possible, and I'm not saying change any practice, but just on the language, for to say the deposit will be assessed. In this instance, this is how we do it. In this instance, this is how we do it. I mean, and just, what I don't want to do is box you in, but it sounded like last time that it is pretty straightforward. The application is pretty straight, but applying it is pretty straightforward, that you're not making a judgment call. It either falls into one of those three categories and you know what will be done with it. So is it possible then to just branch that out where it's, yeah, where there's one sentence that says deposit will be assessed, and then we break out those categories in that text?
Well, and I guess, I mean, I'm sort of in your camp, you know, and I think I put my notes on that on actually the fee schedule. You know, and broke them out into the three different categories we talked about. And because I do think that those need to be certainly identified on the fee schedule, right? I mean, I think what we're trying to do is ensure that in this case, you know, our non-residential service applicants have certainty as to, you know, what their potential opening liability is going to be with respect to a deposit.
would it make sense then to change it to say there will be a deposit and see the fee schedule or?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, so I. we did that. Yeah, I mean, so I just added a sentence to the beginning of 5.03 that says every non-residential service applicant shall have a deposit assessed to its account. Period, because that's what we discussed
Yeah.
last time. Every single non-residential service applicant has a deposit. And it's a matter of what it is. So, you know, and I think, Janetta, that you guys agreed that, I mean, that is what we do today, correct? Okay, and so I think we talked about making that explicit, so
Mhm.
again, folks know,
That
right?
was for me.
And then, I mean, to your point, Brett, I mean, do we point to the service schedule at that point, or, you know, do we somewhat break it down here? I just don't know.
I mean, I think, like, if someone's digging into this far into the policy, I don't think it's a giant burden to say, hey, and this is listed out, you know, and direct them to the other policy. I don't think that we need to.
I think you would be surprised at customers who do
Fair
go
enough.
to our policies, and so, and this,
I mean, would that be a burden to say, see, that, I mean, you know, we're talking.
I don't, because we also,
I feel like once you've opened one, you know, if you've navigated your way to the first policy and we point you to the next one, that's not cumbersome.
It's the fee schedule and it's on the,
It's all part of it. It's,
Well, then, even better.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm flipping between two documents here, but that makes sense. Yeah, so I think just routing in there is fine.
Doing it that way, if you're updating policies for the future, you know, more places where you're putting things, the more places you gotta go back and check back. and say,
Right.
Okay, if I change this, I gotta go back and look at where else. Do I have language and where else do I have language? And,
That's fair. The flip side of that, though, is if we spell it out in both,
Right.
then when we go back and change it, we could have contradicting policies.
Right,
Yeah,
you're right.
so.
well, but these two documents, the fee schedule and this document, to the extent they're reviewed, they should be reviewed at the same time every
Right, I
time,
know.
right? So hopefully that's not too big of a stretch there.
Sure.
Um,
we have the right language in it.
So Rob, first sentence in 5.03, the very first sentence, we need to add a new sentence that says every non-residential service applicant shall have a deposit assessed to its account. I'm not married to that language, so please wordsmith it as you, anybody.
To it's right there. Sorry,
Well, it's a business, so,
it's a car.
yep. Bless you.
That part of the next sentence? Or we just know then it may have a deposit of that.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, to the extent we deal with the one category that's a straight 250,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
That is the predominant.
I do think we need to probably incorporate that in some way, right? Um. And I guess maybe what we do is take out the 2.5 times there, although I'm not sure of that yet. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, we definitely want, because we made an effort to factor in electric and water related charges only, right? We added that because it's, if you know, as everybody knows, we have other charges on BPU bills. probably forever, but,
I'll update you where we are.
it's all right.
Forever.
Look, you're doing the Lord's work over there. I mean, I don't even know what,
Heavy lifting on our part.
but you know what I mean? It's like, but why refer to? I mean, maybe we just say that the deposit may be, think about it.
And we're spelling out the three categories in the schedule itself, right?
But maybe what we need to do, because one of the things we pushed for in the past, and I think that we're gonna wind up with it as a result of this whole process is we're gonna wind up with a definition section at the beginning of this document. And so that's one way we could potentially do it, I guess. But I'm not sure of that, I don't know if that can,
If we're gonna have the breakdown elsewhere, I'm wondering if you could take that first sentence that you just added. And then tack on the factoring in electric and water utility related charges only over the past 12 months at that location. Drop the mention of the 2.5 times, but then I'd still think you'd want to put something in that references. The fee schedule breakdown can be found,
And the fee schedule has a separate policy number, so we can.
so you reference, oh, yeah.
Policy.
I mean, that makes sense to me to combine the sentence like he said.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Angie?
Have to see it.
I know.
Sorry.
In essence, if you struck from applicants may to the highest bill. And then just continue into factoring in.
Factoring in electric will become part of the person's.
Yeah.
It does. So what if the highest bill includes a leak? You factor that in? And
The system would factor that in.
okay. I just want to make sure there are no
For the most part,
things that we don't factor in.
Right.
for the most part, we're letting the system do the calculation.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It's very rare unless it's a new construction. I mean, it's not gonna have any history. But if it's an existing location with previous accounts, the system will generate a deposit.
But if it doesn't have a history. So that doesn't count as vacant property, right? Because it's brand new.
Correct.
So that would it be something that we would compare to a business in another part, a comparable business?
Yes.
Okay. Can you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's.
So she was just asking, Lori, I think brought up about the leak. So it just depends on how billing does it. So if they were to just do an adjustment, then that would just be adjusted on the balance and the bill would still be the same. So they would have to rebill it. So then the system looks at that bill that had the adjustment on the leak. If they got one, but commercial accounts, they only get adjustments on water pollution. We don't do, the water department doesn't have a leak adjustment for commercial accounts. It's only for residential.
So it's factored in that history that it's looking.
Yeah, unless billing rebills the bill, then it will take that bill. But if not, they just do an adjustment, I guess like a header, then that would not be factored in.
Is there a way that's? I'm not married to the words on this, but to reference another policy, do you got, is there a consistent with other places in policy, or the fee schedule, see policy X.
I mean, to put that in there.
Yeah,
And I think we do that in some of the policies in here. We've referenced the fee schedule.
5.02 right above it has
Yeah.
referenced multiple times.
PC 200-002.
yes,
We ought to be consistent. and
Yeah.
do it the same.
that's what I, yeah, we can just use the same format then.
But I do think, I guess to the extent we're going to use, well, so up above, when we refer to it as the fee and deposit schedule with PC 200-002 in parentheses, right?
Mhm.
So I'm fine using that as a shorthand, but the title of the policy is customer service adopted fee and deposit schedule, right? So if we put that as, in the,
Definition.
right, and then just do a short.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with that, but let's just make sure that we're using the actual title of the policy.
So you said it was the customer service.
Adopted fee and deposit schedule.
Do you have a preference on where we slot in that reference?
No, I mean, I think it's probably makes sense to make it the next sentence, right?
It's listed prior and up on that page, so you should list the full name with the abbreviated name after it at the first mention and done.
But if we're gonna put it as a, definition, we can do it that way. So that way we don't have to worry about it. So after, over the past 12 months at that location period, enter it there. And again, I'm not married to the language. The non-residential service applicant deposit levels.
If you don't want to put all that, I mean, it is under the heading non-residential service applicants.
I hear you.
No.
Specified or called out.
Or specified?
Or as specified in. Well, you can do the short form that you did above. Fee and deposit schedule.
Our as in that sentence doesn't.
But the policy number there.
Or specified maybe?
Would be R.
And Jody types this up.
Put a bracket up.
Link that, link with the link.
We good there?
That works for me. Yeah.
So the reassessment of the deposit. I presume based upon the reassessment. Well, I guess, let me ask this. For non-residential service customers. Do we reassess their deposit every 6 months?
We don't reassess everyone's deposit every 6 months. The only time normally that it's reassessed is if it's looked at and someone sees that the deposit is too low based on the usage and or the services being disconnected. And when it's being disconnected, it has more of a potential to be a credit risk. And they notice that the deposit is not a deposit that is 2.5 times the highest bill. Which could be in the case of a minimum deposit. We have that on there, and then the service is really using, somebody gets into that property or something happens and it's too low. That could be an issue, or it is just reassessed based on maybe the previous usage and now there's a lot more usage there and it's too low. So I don't see it happen a lot, but I do know that it does.
What about is there ever an instance where we see usage lower? Or payment history so good that we decide that their deposit doesn't need to be as high as it was?
We don't base it off their payment history.
But it says here that it can be reassessed on payment history.
Okay.
So if it's not, then let's strike that,
I
but.
don't know that it's reassessed on payment history. I've seen.
Payment history also has to deal with the schedule for disconnect.
Right.
History.
Yeah, it could be the other way, that they're not good.
That's probably why it's in there.
Yeah.
It's based off their payment history, which is the one I was talking about with disconnects. When they see an account that's consistently getting disconnected or has been disconnected several times, what they'll do is then decide, is this the right deposit for this account, and reassess it if necessary.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking sort of, this is generic language, right? And so if I'm reading this as a customer who's like, man, I paid my bill on time, literally every time for 2 straight years or whatever the period of time is. I've actually put in, whatever, I've weatherized my building or whatever it is, my usage is actually lower as a result of whatever it is, I've adjusted temperature setting, whatever it is. And I'm still out there with a $800 deposit, right? I mean, that's tying up, capital for a small business that, that they could probably utilize back in their, and so if we're saying that we're going to reassess based on these things, I would think that a customer could assume that they're going to reassess it the other way too. And it sounds like we just don't do that.
I don't think we've done that.
We don't lower, we only raise. Is that what?
That's what I'm hearing.
But it's like the ones I don't do that, but the ones that I've heard, so that they've been increased, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so we talked last time about there for
Because
20.
we don't do it, we don't do a residential customer. You have to do it for a residential customer.
Right, and so I think my bigger question is should we be doing that on both sides of our customer base, right? I mean, let's just take industrial out for a minute, but I mean, should we be looking at that? We talked last time for 2024, we have $7.3 million in deposits from our customers on our books. And, I am confident you guys have not had time to pull together the data for the last 12 months on that, so I'm not even gonna ask, but I mean, that if we don't, I guess if we don't look at this both ways, and I understand why we have to look at it the one way. There's no question about that, right? For bad debt, I get it. But if we're not looking at it the other way, we're simply never rewarding good customers in this community, ever.
You get your deposit back after so many years of good payments.
Right, and that's what I guess my point and that is, I'm not trying to word this correctly. When you see someone that's getting disconnected and you know that's a hit, that may be a credit problem for us, pose a credit risk.
Mhm.
I see that we do that. And what Rob was saying, when we do see that a customer has been paying, then for the 2 years or the 3 years, then they get their deposit back. Assessing it the other way after 6 months, I've seen many times, I've seen it during 2020 and before and after. We'll have a customer that maybe loses a job, or you could say maybe gets another job, but most of the time what I see is someone that's had a good pay history and then their pay history starts going down based on what reason, I don't know. But I would think that it would be not beneficial for us to reassess, not knowing if they would continue, because some people have a good pay history for a short period of time, but it's not for the long term. And I think that's why the deposit is for the long term. So there's a proven credit history.
So do these non-residential, they get their deposits back also after 2 years or 3 years?
Theirs is 3.
3 years.
Theirs is 3.
Oh, I thought it's not residential. Yes, 3 years. So it's 2 years for residential, 3 years.
And that's done automatically. They don't have to request it. Okay.
Awesome.
And it does have the interest as well.
And interest.
While we're gathering the data on the 12 months of that, and I'm confident it's somewhere in the financials, Lori, so I apologize, I don't know where it is. But can we also grab the amount of deposits refunded under the policy in the last 12 months? Just a dollar figure. Is that not doable?
Yeah, I'm trying to think how we could do that. So when we refund the deposits, it's mixed in with like credit adjustments and final bills or final credits. I don't know if I could get a clean one with just deposits,
Active ones,
ones that we have
probably just active accounts that have,
refunded, yeah.
we can try. We can give it the old college try.
Because I think, Rose, that might get closer to what you're looking for anyway. If you're taking out the ones that are closing out their account, but just those who are remaining active have reached that 2 or 3 year threshold.
It's being tracked and calculated and we may be able to help with the data research.
What was that, Rob?
If it's being tracked and calculated for the amount of deposit return in CIS system, you may be able to query the database.
Yeah, if you can identify refunds versus credit adjustments,
If we can.
then we might be able to do that, yeah.
If it's a calculated value, then.
Are we wanting residential and non-residential?
Yes.
How do we calculate the interest for those?
So it's the interest rate is off of the state's, default rate,
Okay.
and then it's a field in our system, we update it every year. So it goes back to, looks at that deposit.
And that statute is referenced in the policy. It's some, I
Gotcha.
can't remember where, but it definitely is.
The deposit's been out there for years, whatever it calculates it. That year was in there for each of the years.
I'm assuming the average business owner is going to say, yes, but I could have taken my $800 or whatever it is and, gotten a larger return on that investment, but they are still getting, money is still growing.
Mhm.
Is there, I realize this is off the cuff, but assuming it would take a substantial amount of staff time if you were to reassess for the possibility of lowering? Is there any way of estimating what that would look like? You know, because if you're implementing, we're talking implementing a practice that's not already happening, that is, that's obviously staff hours that are being added to the load here.
Can you complete your sentence?
Oh, sorry. So
Lowering what?
So lowering the deposit, like Rose had floated the possibility, hey, we do some reassessments, is the deposit insufficient? But if we were to look in the direction of, we're gonna review these and find, the most stellar ones that perhaps based on all these factors, we would feel comfortable with a lower deposit amount. I don't know what the system is that would allow us to pull that, but it sounds comprehensive, right? You'd be reviewing all of them, having to establish some sort of threshold that they meet, and then going through some sort of process on doing an earlier partial refund.
Yeah, develop something. because-
Can you make a note of looking how we can automate that?
Or develop something,
Yeah.
develop a report and whatever that we use to look at.
Or automated, just like it automatically,
Yeah.
it's automated that it.
I have staff doing that. We can come up with an automated process.
Yeah, obviously that would be a great time and energy saver.
Mhm.
Can we develop a report or fully automated way to review all accounts for adjustment and deposit amounts, both negative and positive?
Yes. And I ask that because my fear would be, I can see the value for, a ratepayer and having that, especially if they're, doing everything they're supposed to be doing. But if it costs so much in staff time that we've now added a new cost to the system, we're giving a small benefit to those folks, but passing on a cost to everyone else, just be, if they have to hire extra staff or overtime. But if it could be automated, then there might be the opportunity for.
If we can do that, we
actual
can
savings.
also have the report generated at the same time, but at least have the automation. Run.
To apply, to do it, just like it does what I was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The one thing that I would caution on is I probably wouldn't do it every 6 months. I don't think bouncing people back and forth every 6 months. Okay, they get paid, yeah, they paid good for 6
Right.
months and now the 7th or 8th month it goes back and then we put it back and then, so I would think it would be harder for a person that's already paid it. Now we gave it back. Now we're saying you need to pay it again.
Yeah.
I think it would be more cumbersome on them since I had already paid it and now you put it back and now you're putting one back on based on the fact that now I haven't paid. I've got 2 or 3.
And do you look at a percent, like if it's $10, if you recalculate and it's $5 or $10, and it doesn't make sense to, go through all that work to do that. Is there a threshold that we, and so then you get in, I say if they get their money back in 2 years, if it's residential, 3 years, that's pretty good.
That's a really good flag though, because you wouldn't want someone to get pulled around on, then it just feels like you're being billed twice.
Yeah, and I think that would be harder because kind of, working through making sure the deposit gets paid, then it gets refunded. Now you say you have to pay it.
Or it might not be all refunded, or you mean if they're, it's gonna be, if it's reassessed and I say, okay, you're only using this much now, and so we're gonna lower it $5 or $10, so there you go, you get $5 or $10 back. Then the next 6 months, you say, okay, well, now you're using more, so we want. It doesn't seem.
I think that particular sentence, the deposit can be reassessed. I think you have to add the words and adjusted because just it being reassessed to me doesn't tell me that my deposit amount may change. So, I don't know if 6 months is the correct interval. That's up to you guys. But if it's adjusted based on usage, I think that we have the criteria. I think then it would be 2.5 times based on that current usage. Is that how it would be done? Or, I mean, let's just say their original deposit was $500 and their usage skyrocketed, right? So what's the adjustment of that deposit?
I still think it's the same 2.5 times.
Other than,
Last 12 months.
okay, and so I think we probably need to somehow address that in the language. But I think it can just be still referencing you know, the fee schedule. So I don't think we have to do anything major there. But if it's based on payment history, how's it adjusted then?
It's the same way. It's the same way. It's still 2.5 times the highest bill.
And that was if, like you guys referenced, if there are shut-offs happening, so then it's a credit concern at that point more than a usage concern.
Yes.
And if, so the 2.5, someone's already in where the original deposit was the 2.5 times, we just, same calculation, but more updated data to go into it. If it was one of those other camps where it was a vacancy or a brand new property, we might reassess and then like better move them into the 2.5 times calculation now that you have data that says, hey, our estimate or our vacancy fee isn't cutting it. Now we have the real data. Let's run it there.
We want to leave it 6 months or do it like after a year so they can establish themselves a little bit.
For different seasons.
We can move it to 12 months. What do you?
That would be better.
I mean, that way you're getting the whole,
Get a little bit more.
Getting all the
usage.
seasons.
commercial's not
Getting all the.
real extreme,
So we
Yes.
base their deposit.
winter, summer, but
Right.
So it would be very
Is the
good.
current practice actually 12 months or are there some that we're 6 months in and there's a reassessment?
Normally that happens, like I said, if
if there's.
in that 6 months, they're getting
Yeah.
constantly disconnected and we don't have a deposit that's going to actually cover the.
Is it cumbersome for you all if we move it to 12 months and that happens and you don't have a chance to assess a higher deposit 6 months in?
I don't think so, no, because once it's on there, it's still going to.
Yeah.
The only time it will probably make any type of big difference was if in between that time they final the service.
Right.
And then we didn't have a high enough deposit to apply back to the account, and then they never paid it and went into write-offs, which puts a burden on everyone.
Sure.
So that would be the only time that I think that it would make
Yeah.
a bigger difference, but otherwise using 12 months should not make a difference.
When you do the minimum, the $250 minimum for a new business or for a
Vacant property.
vacant property.
Mhm.
Do you reassess those then at 6 months, always reassess those at 6 months and see if that 250 is adequate or if it needs to be raised to the 2.5 times?
Because normally right now, the only time they're getting looked at is if they're disconnected. So if
So if they get in as a new business or as
not new,
a business
just vacant,
vacant, then they get a break.
as long as we know they're vacant. I say that would be something they'd have to communicate to us that this property's vacant until I lease it out.
And there's not an amount of usage that would make that get looked at.
Right, because previously they had a tenant in there.
Right.
But if someone else, if another tenant signed for service, then it would be,
Yeah.
then the deposit would be assessed for that tenant. So it would no longer be the 250.
You've got a vacant property and it was a restaurant. And it's vacant now, it went out of business. So then you get somebody new come in to that business, that vacant business. And they're gonna be a restaurant. They get the 250.
They could if that owner was signed for service for 12 months. Remember, it looks at the last 12 months of billing. So if the owner only had service in their name until another tenant came in for 1 to 2 months, then no, it wouldn't be the 250 because it's looking at the highest bill in the last 12 months.
If they've been vacant for 2 years or whatever.
Right, then they could get the 250, but if it hasn't been vacant for 12 months, then they're gonna get the highest bill off the previous tenant.
And then as long as they are paying their bills, that 250 just stays their deposit until it's refunded.
Hey, Rob, on that sentence, I actually think the "and adjusted" should be moved to the end after payment history. So payment history, comma,
Oh,
and adjusted per the fee and deposit schedule, you know, PC, blah, 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 whatever.
Can be,
based on payment history, comma. No, you had every 12 months is right.
right, you want even that's 312.
Yeah.
Based on payment history, comma,
And adjusted per the fee and deposit schedule. And then whatever in parentheses, the PC, whatever.
200.
May be adjusted or shall be adjusted.
May.
Yeah.
You.
That may instead of can.
I think just on the second part, and may be adjusted. Okay. We good there for now? So the next section down that was struck. So if a commercial customer establishes automatic payments right out of the gate, we're still not waiving a deposit. Is that what I'm hearing? Or is that what I'm reading?
Yes. Kind of got confirmed a couple times.
A couple times to the tune of,
$5,000, I think was the bill. One of ours upstairs was, didn't have a deposit. I think you had one too. Yeah,
so,
say 1,200.
I thought it was 12,000, but
Okay.
okay.
Oh, that's why I was thinking it was a pretty
It was pretty high.
significant amount.
so we have a couple of instances that total less than $15,000 potentially.
Yep.
And we're willing to change an entire policy based on that. I mean, we're not willing to change the policy in the reverse, so it's like, well, we understand that, we've got one or two outliers for this, that, or the other, but on this, we're willing to change an entire policy for one or two outliers. I mean, I'm just curious, I guess, as to the rationale on that versus when we've talked about other areas where we've brought examples of X, Y, or Z, and we're like, well, but we have to make sure that this is across the board. I get that, but I mean, so we have, we've got 97% or whatever the amount is that, do this, that this works for. But then we're gonna, for one or two customers that it didn't work for, we're not gonna allow that. And I
mean, if we continue to allow it, then, and they have a bad, return, they have a return or whatever, then it's reassessing and putting a deposit on them is what we would need to do. But
So that is what we do if they have an insufficient, but I just think with the example, because we discussed this before, December, this had come up. We do assess the deposit, but in the account that you guys had, they didn't have the service long enough for us to be able to do that. But once they have insufficient funds, we stop the draft and then we should reassess the deposit.
Cause then they just went out of business.
And the other example, I believe what happened was, I think one check was returned. They, one check was returned from the bank, for the automatic bank draft. Before anything happened, another check was returned. And then they finalized the service, so I think we ended up with two, which were pretty significant amounts. And then, we had no deposit at all. We had no deposit at all, put back to the account, and we couldn't end up getting paid on that.
And when we talked about it, I just have notes, if we were to add it back in, you were gonna try to do wire payments. I think that's what I had in my notes. We talked about it before in the policy committee meeting.
Like ACH,
That's why I was thinking that, you guys use wire.
that's what my notes say.
Yeah,
ACH.
It's ACH.
ACH out of their.
But I do think maybe you said something about wire where you didn't want, if we took out ACH.
I mean, if we get wire, I mean, that's guaranteed.
right.
Yes, I think that's why you wanted it,
Yeah, and that's what I had in my notes that you
Okay.
said we could possibly do wire if to keep that in.
because it would be guaranteed.
Yeah.
Well, Brett, I don't know where you or Tom are at on that, but I mean, I would like it reinstated in some way.
Sorry. It intuitively, it feels like there is some benefit to us if people sign up to pay in that way. Is there a way of, I mean, just having it automatic, and I know occasionally it might bounce, but is there an upside to that rather than other payment methods for us? All deposit or no deposit, would we prefer that people sign up to pay their bills that way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could pull from their account, yeah.
Are we going to lose some of that if we don't have that incentive of when you sign up for the first time, you don't need to put a deposit? Because I would think that'd be a fairly significant incentive.
Because technically, I mean, I know it's struck out here, but technically that is still the policy today that
Right.
we would not assess a deposit on a customer, right? So
We're still following that.
But so I mean, I get the downside, right? If you have zero deposit and suddenly someone's payments are bouncing, that's a real risk that we're carrying, but I don't want to lose the upside, which is if this is our preferred payment method and that's an incentive to get people to use it.
So if we do it and they get returned, then as long as they stay in business, so we can reassess to put a deposit on them.
Yeah, but then the risk is that they
If they,
cancel service and then
Right.
you're just out.
Right.
well, and we could add right down here in that very last paragraph there before 5.04. I mean, that whole paragraph needs punctuation and stuff anyway, but I mean, but we can add in that scenario, right? If they have a failed wire payment or whatever.
It's already in there. The one that was struck does have that information.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was thinking
yeah.
even if it, okay, sorry, my bad.
I'm
So,
assuming the real risk is for a very large payer, right? If we're talking a small entity that didn't pay us a few $100 deposit,
Yeah.
I mean, we would obviously like to all their
sure,
payments go through, but we're not carrying a giant risk there. Is there a threshold, right? Is there a partial deposit for a business of a certain size where we're carrying that extra risk that several $1,000 check is bouncing as opposed to a $100 check? I just don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I definitely get the risk to it, but it feels like a benefit for a lot of businesses.
Maybe if they start out and pay deposits, if they keep a payment, they have a stellar payment history for 6 months, then the deposit will be, where we usually refund it in 2 years or 3 years, we refund it at an earlier date if they're on the ACH.
Do we see any pattern in the bounce you know, I know we've got a couple examples here, but is it something that shows up sooner than later or just unpredictable?
It's, I would say it's,
Yeah, so there's not a pattern.
yeah,
I'm thinking, you know, the restaurant example, you might have one that starts out great for 6 months and
Right, yeah.
hype goes away and
I just hesitate about having all those scenarios. We try to automate the process.
Yeah.
You know, so that we don't have to go back and manually look at on a consistent basis, because everybody's starting service at a different time.
That is how we.
I mean, I'm okay, you know, keeping that in, but if they do get returns, that we assess the deposit. And then we'll just run the risk if somebody just finals. So if you're okay with that risk.
Yeah, well, and also remember, I mean, I think you were, I'll complete what you're saying. If we're gonna automate something, certainly can't capture every scenario that comes up, okay? So we have to say, okay, here's the process that we're gonna do. We'll automate that and then whatever falls on that exception list is still, now how do we deal with that?
It would be good if we could automate it at this time where we get a report. But if
So
we
you
could
have-
automate it based on the report,
Right.
then it
Okay.
would make it
So you
easier.
have a report and you have an exception report, right? Exception report says, okay, this didn't go through the process that we established based on. And now what do you do with that?
That's what the report
If
says.
the policy don't speak to it, then we have to develop our own process.
Right, but that's what we already have.
Right.
But it's a manual process. When it comes out on the report, then they have to manually go in and make those changes. Maybe we can look at automating.
how big, like, worst case scenario, if the policy stays the same? What is potentially the largest check that could bounce from a non-residential? I mean, are we talking like the T-Bones kind of scenario from, you know, I know that's an old one, but something of that size would fall into this category?
I mean, really any customer, I mean.
Yeah.
Like GM owns Corning, like that, but where there's a
Straight or bond.
Yeah,
half a million
right.
a month or whatever, but. You know, I'm not aware of any huge customer that has come in most recently, but.
You look to some of the recent economic downturns, how has that impacted us?
Yeah.
And all the other things that come up, because businesses have to make adjustments as they go through that too. And sometimes, and I don't know the answer to it, but. You know, what have we been hit with either pay or non-pay customers, showing up?
And they're also able to get a surety bond or letter.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the larger ones, you know, if they have to pay a really good sized deposit, they'll do a surety bond. And then we maintain that.
Well, it just, I guess it feels like the current practice is most beneficial to very small businesses, right? That deposit is a real consideration and what they need to do. But they're not really the ones posing, there is some risk, and again, we want everyone to pay, but that's not the scenario we're
Right.
staying up at night fearing. And honestly, that's probably a lot of them where we really do want them signed up this way because it's automated. We don't have to think about it. They don't have to think about it, and we just move on. So I guess I would be in favor if there is a change to the policy, that we try and look at a pretty high threshold where that would have to be met before we're assessing that. But I mean, I'm listening to you all, and if we need to change it or not, personally, when I read that, I think the upside of getting as many people or as many businesses on that automatic pay schedule intuitively seems preferred, but
And you know, the way that's written there, we're just saying if they have one insufficient, not two returns. Yeah. I mean,
That's
so
what anybody
we don't have to wait
yeah.
Yeah.
as long as the returns are coming back promptly to us. Are you good with putting that paragraph back in?
Okay.
Did you want it to be wire or did you want it to?
Let's see, so it's customer cancels, payment or incurs insufficient deposit be assessed.
Can business set up an automatic wire?
What's that?
Can businesses set up an automatic wire?
Recurring, yeah,
Recurring wire,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because we probably need to say what happens if, you know, they're not able to do ACH draft. We don't want them to write a check to us, because that's the same thing.
Scheduled wire transfer.
So that, and if they set up a wire transfer, then would we not assess the deposit? That's,
Yeah, it would be the same as.
That's what I was asking, because that's just what I had in my notes. Shoot, wire.
What's the difference between a wire transfer and I guess this is just more blanket automatic payments?
so the wire transfer, the customer's initiating, so in order for that wire to even happen, they have to have the funds in their account. When we're drawing against account, we don't know at that time when there's,
But they don't have to initiate it every single month?
I mean, they could set it up as a recurring on their side of the house.
Okay,
The return payments.
Yeah,
that's helpful, thank you. How much more difficult is it for the average non-residential customer to set that up as opposed to just the automatic payments?
how difficult is it?
Well, I mean, right now, I think the upside is give me a button to click that says I'm gonna, you know, you're just gonna pull this from my bank account every month. It's fairly streamlined. Is there, I think we're putting, this would, if we said you have to do it for wire transfer, it's gonna shift some of that burden, I'm assuming, for them to go set that up
Right.
themselves.
Right.
But it'd probably be different amount every month, so they'd have to, each month would have to go into and wire this amount or that amount,
Yeah, based on
because
the,
they're not on a level, they're on.
Yeah.
I mean, but, I mean, it's a little bit of a hassle for them, but if it's to avoid a deposit,
Sure.
um,
And I get that. I think
Yeah.
there's still an incentive on that end, but from BPU's incentives, again, and you all tell me to what extent this balances out, but if we want as many folks as possible doing those automatic payments, every hoop they have to jump through to do it, we're gonna get fewer who just go, yep, I can click that button, I can avoid the deposit, and this is a real easy streamlined thing. I feel like you all are in a better position to weigh the pros and cons of that. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that, because I think just every step we give someone to go through, we're gonna lose some from our preferred method.
So Lori, are we primarily talking about large commercial?
no, not necessarily.
Okay, so,
Could be medium, could be small business.
okay.
Medium
I was
business.
just- I was asking, trying to think of.
Yeah.
How easy would it be? And
Yeah, 'cause if you're a
what-
giant
what-
business,
yeah, what
presumably
type
that
of
is
customer
easy.
groups are we talking about? So,
I mean, you know, the little homegrown,
yeah, the small mom
small,
and pop shop.
you know, they're using QuickBooks or something like
Yeah.
that or whatever. But others that use some type of system or, you know, have bank account or whatever, I mean, we go in, we set up wire, we don't do wires as much anymore because we do ACHs, but you know, we can go in and set up wires. But
So how would you guys envision contacting all these customers to try to convince them to go down this path?
to do a wire,
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna try to do that, how do we communicate out and say, hey?
well, I mean, to me, if we word that to where it says the customer cancels automatic payment or incurs an insufficient funds transaction, a deposit may be assessed unless, I'm not sure of the right wording here, unless they
Right,
So when we.
commit to a
That would be a thing that would happen if they have an insufficient fund.
Yes.
Up front, they could do the normal.
ACA.
Okay, sorry, I think I may have been fixating on that
Okay,
thing.
okay.
We're gonna require that for anyone who signs up for automatic payments to do it via wire. If that first step is open to everyone, we're still gonna get.
So the automatic, what we're saying there, the bank draft is we are initiating that to pull from their bank account.
Right.
It's not considered a wire, that we call it a bank draft.
Right.
So then we're saying if the customer cancels that bank draft or has an insufficient deposit,
Yeah.
Will be assessed.
will be assessed or may be assessed unless they commit to a wire transaction.
That would be up to you. I mean, I'm in the camp of if they cancel it, if they have an insufficient, then they just need to go ahead and we need to reassess the deposit and put it back on there. But if there's another way that you are thinking would be different, then we're definitely, open to put it.
And I don't know how many would,
Because that's what we do on everyone.
yeah,
If they're signed up for automatic bank draft and it's returned, then they're taken off.
I'm taking off and they have
They're
to.
taken off.
A,
And there's this, residential is not based on the deposit.
right,
So what would the numbers look like? I guess I'm still thinking about, because there's gonna be a policy change. Not all these customers gonna be reading the policies to get caught up with the new policy. So, and if we're gonna change, then what volume of customers, and then if they do go through getting cut off and have to make the adjustments, wouldn't it be better for us to at least let them know that there's a policy change? Here's what the new policy states, suggests.
Well,
So that they better know how to deal with this going forward.
it sounds like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but the policy change would be potentially one more avenue once they've canceled or bounced the check.
Mhm.
So you could do the communication only to those who hit that mark, right? And it wouldn't be limiting necessarily, because normally it would be, okay, this happened, now you pay your deposit, so it would just be communicating. You could still avoid that if you set up a wire, am I understanding that right?
yeah, I think, and that's really when that communication will have to happen. I mean, because we're be notifying them that they had a bad transaction or, I mean.
Is that communication automated right now?
Well, when they have bad transactions.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, is it communicated when they drop off a bank draft?
No, I think that's a report.
You do have reports.
I think if they cancel their automatic bank draft.
Right, that
that's a
comes up on a
report.
report, if they
That's a
cancel or
report.
they have it
So
insufficient.
at least we have some notification that it's
But
done.
what goes back to the customer is an automated letter
Okay,
that's initiated through cash operations. But when I say automated letter, it's initiated through, because it's a printed letter, it's sent out, but they all say the same thing. So we would have to, if we're doing something different for that, we would just have to draft another type of letter,
okay.
sent to those types.
Does that go out through InfoSec?
No.
Personally, I think.
Cash operations.
If they drop off of the automatic bank draft because of a bad payment, bad check, then we don't give them another chance to
We assess the deposit.
reassess the policy.
Yeah.
So
That's what we do currently.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I don't know whether they're, that's my.
Good.
Well, reinstating it.
Right.
If
Keep fighting them.
like-
Because then if they don't set up wires and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I think there is, reinstating it, the benefit's already there. And the only thing that's happening if that has failed is that they then are treated like everyone else was all along.
Yeah, because I think we added this in 2020 when you guys approved the policies.
Yeah, this has only been enforced for a couple of years.
Right,
Yeah.
I was on the board for 2 minutes at that point.
I remember, we met.
Try not to make waves.
I don't know.
Oh,
Oh.
You waited.
For the days, weren't they?
You waited
Janetta?
in the pool.
So, Rose, to your previous point, on this paragraph, after assess, do we need to add,
I would just say per the fee and deposit schedule. and put the parenthetical.
Can you have me add in charge or something?
Oh, and adjusted, maybe.
Well, this one says it will be assessed,
This one's not just.
so it's not just be assessed.
Assessed in accordance with.
Like May.
I would say will.
Oh, no,
Assessed.
I didn't change the lane.
Maybe we just keep,
very adamant
we keep
about
it the
that.
way it was.
Sent to David.
We're just adding something on the end of assessed.
We're gonna.
I would just put,
Well,
Way to not mention it.
also needs to answer his question.
But he sent one out, but I think he just.
what, the words?
No, just that
Huh?
fee schedule. I mean, we have it referenced like 5 times in this section. of-
Well, not to mention it a million times, sure.
'Cause
But I will tell you that as my day job, I can't undo my day job, so I apologize, but the
No,
more clear we are, the better the customers will have an understanding of what is required of them, right? And so I do think we can probably shorten that. And maybe just get down to like fee schedule, right? So we don't have to say all the things, but we'll do that through the
Right.
definitions.
yes, exactly.
So I promise you we'll have less words.
Yes.
I'm not gonna be one reading in through it all the time. It's just the fact.
We might be,
It just looked weird having here.
I know.
You have it all over.
I know.
At the end, almost every bullet point you have it listed.
I know. I'm not even gonna talk about the bullet points and not like actual categories, I can't go there. So the next paragraph really is what I think we're trying to get at in, you know, how the deposits are determined for this customer segment, right? And this is what we talked about sort of including in the fee schedule. I don't mind describing it here. I do think it needs to be more clear than it is now.
Are you on the new?
Well, see, if we had a number, I could tell you where we're at, but we don't. We have a bullet, Tom, so.
Okay.
Well, at that bullet.
Okay.
at
Okay,
that
so-
bullet.
Under 5.
Just making sure we're at the same second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
That's what I was wondering. If we're gonna spell it out in the fee schedule and we're continually referring people to that fee schedule. Is it? Just
And if the fee
redundant?
schedule says vacant, new or like, and then new and same.
Yeah, and I think that, again, we might be able to benefit from, we might be able to capitalize some of this stuff, right? So vacant means this, right? So then we take, your guys's definition basically of vacant, and that way, less words here. I mean,
Right.
we're putting a few more words there, but I think it's, I mean, I understand why we're describing them and we should be describing them what they are. But now they're gonna correlate to, some line item in the fee schedule. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, I guess, my suggestion. Mr. Croneman, any thoughts on that? Mr. Parker?
I think this paragraph feels a little redundant to me. I mean, it's not, I have no objection to it. I think it's all accurate and but it's gonna be spelled out. Where we're sending them to look anyway, so I can live with it or without it. But I think the content is fine.
Well, there's a sentence fragment in there, but, so.
Grammar aside.
Yeah, I mean, and that, yeah. So I think if we can, I think if we get the 3 separate categories, right, into the fee schedule, and then, we potentially, because I guess it's good, we've got.
I talked to Gabby about this before. What's the difference between a non-residential application and a new non-residential application? If it's an application, it's a new application, isn't it?
What if it's a transfer?
Well, they're still going to another
new.
building. It could be smaller. Yeah, could be bigger, still new.
It's
Still kind of new.
I'm with you, but
I'm just,
No, what
I
are
think
you
Brett brought it up
asking about?
last time and was, I started thinking afterwards, I'm like, what is the difference between the two? Just the word new.
Yeah, the top of here and that's the. Oh, I'll use-
Yeah, it made hers larger.
That's okay.
I mean, the two bullets in its entirety.
No,
Are you
basically
talking
just
about
basically just the
non-residential?
heading. What's the difference between a
And then
residential
new
and not new?
non-residential. I think what this one signifies is a
New construction.
Construction.
New construction,
Or,
okay.
yeah, a new construction or the business transfers into something that it had been
Wasn't
before. Like, it was a flower shop and now it's a bakery and they're actually baking and using big ovens. I mean, that's the only thing that come up at this time. But they're using ovens and things that they didn't before. So actually, it's a different type of business. And I think that's all.
So we almost have to
specify.
describe what it
Like the
is.
Patty Shack on Leavenworth Road, didn't he just, I think he used to have it as a restaurant. Now it's like a store where they sell items out of.
So you'd almost have to describe what the new would be, try to make it clear for people.
Is that what we're gonna, I thought we were gonna add that in the definition.
Well, that's the thing, if we
Right.
have it in the definition, I don't know.
I think that's the fear of getting too redundant with this, that even though we're essentially saying the same thing, it can actually add some confusion to it.
If I was opening up a franchise to a chain, would you then base my first deposit, like a new one, would you base my deposit based on other restaurants at that same chain?
Yes.
So I think it might be, it's from BBQ's perspective. Non-residential service for the first paragraph is a returning customer or customer that we can model off of. A new non-residential account would be a restaurant for which we don't have anything to.
Like Margaritaville.
Right.
No, we don't.
aren't any resorts here in KCK? Is
I
Not
guess,
that I
Brett,
know.
I guess.
Since you're actually down.
that a resort?
For weekends, certain weekends.
Did they ever build that casino out of Hollywood? No?
They built a
Okay.
casino.
No, I'm sorry,
No,
the,
the hotel.
the hotel. No, still.
They just pay the fee instead.
I'd pay $1 million a year not to build two, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we have closest, but it's not gonna, I wouldn't.
It wouldn't be the same.
Great Wolf is like kind of our only thing that I would.
That would be the
consider,
closest.
That would be the closest, I guess.
But it's probably
To a
gonna be
Margaritaville,
a different level.
way less.
Yeah.
So maybe it would have to be patterned after like the one in Branson or something. I mean,
Think so?
and.
I mean, that'd be the only thing I.
Well, but like, is that something you guys can even do? Or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean,
Can we take it, actually, I think that's what Rob was saying. Can we take the Margaritaville that they have in, like, is that Osage Beach?
I know they have
It's
one
in
in
the
Florida. so
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah,
like,
Osage
yes.
Beach. I think they made that a Margaritaville, the closest one that I know.
Oh, the one in Missouri, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, how do we get that in?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I can call and let us.
Yeah, and I was. Similar that we didn't have in our footprint versus.
Right.
others We don't, right? I don't know how we do it.
We open a new Go Chicken Go.
We should be able to allow that.
But like, what if they open like a Buc-ee's or something? We know they're.
Oh, yeah,
You and I
we have one
talked
down in
about the
Springfield.
Buc-ee's. Yeah, there's one in Springfield, but we
don't have
pattern
anything
after
as
Quick
big
Trip
as
or
a-
anything, but we don't have anything
As big as a.
big like a Buc-ee's.
I think
So
you run
this is gonna
into
happen.
different climate challenge too. I mean, you know, your heating and cooling bills, Florida are gonna be different than KCK.
And
Not able to be.
it this tells you
Yeah.
usage
In-
perhaps, but not necessarily if it's a
In our-
different franchisee, not necessarily
That's how you can define. it.
Yeah, that's.
human history. They could be.
No, it can get you in the ballpark, but it won't be exact. I can't believe it. Business.
Right.
So can we do that?
Jumping back.
If it's not in our service territory, can we use something based on?
I think that would not be wise. I mean,
How do we get that info unless
Yeah.
it's the bills?
Yeah, that would.
And we would need their usage and the rates, so we can divide that out and apply our rate, like I.
And how do we know that what they're saying to us is,
Right, and they could,
Everything.
and they could be electric only, and then we have to find who does their water and.
so if we define just new as unique, new and non, what'd you say?
It's not.
Not our service.
No, not. correct.
New and not current, that we can't model off of.
right. If I may,
I think we were way off on this.
no, we didn't, because you know what? This is actually really, really good discussion. because we're trying to we're trying to state what it is. The practice is what it is we mean, right? And so that particular discussion, I think, helped me get it straight in my head. May I take a stab, not during this session, at maybe making some definitions that we can build off of based on this discussion
Yes.
and bring those to our next session? I know everyone thought we'd be finished session today.
Are you wanting to do anything to that second bullet point?
We're probably gonna delete it.
Okay,
That would be my.
that would be my
preference.
that.
Okay. In favor of describing this elsewhere.
Right.
But this is gonna be like a rewrite somewhere else.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
deleting the new non-residential.
This has potential for it to be deleted, this paragraph.
But I mean, understanding that we're conceptually going to bring it in another place.
Okay. It's really, well, if you want me to go ahead and make it just the last line or and adjusted. And 6 to 12, just to repeat this.
As they changed from 6 to 12.
Yeah, I wouldn't like fully delete it yet. Maybe just bracket this off or something, because I do want to remember. I mean, I know it's on my page too, but
So do a purple line, not a red line.
Well, if I go ahead and delete it here, it will go ahead and line out.
But it's still there.
Have it and you can, go back.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can comment it saying revisit or.
Rose will work on definition based on today's discussion, back to policy committee on the next meeting. This paragraph has the potential to be deleted.
Oh, you already got that in there.
He's ahead of the.
Can you comment on your comment? It says well done.
I think so. No.
will you do me a favor? And after this session, will you send that version out to,
I'm listening.
The
I'll
folks-
probably send it to Angela, her handle.
Perfectly fine.
Communication, just reducing our standard. Sure.
sure.
Can you add
Not
to
to-
your list?
I'm sorry.
Can you add me to your
Yes,
list?
I certainly can. Am
You are saving this, right?
I supposed to be?
No. Just save it on the desktop. That could,
Jesus says you should too.
there you go.
Oh, Lord.
I like the heart over the heart. Now it's-
Okay, so then we have just an errant paragraph that I think was moved maybe from another location, right? Originally was moved from another location, I think, to this location that's non-bulleted, but also not with a subcategory of any kind.
I think it's from a section above.
I know.
I think we added this one.
We did.
went over
I
our
think we did it to
policies.
be consistent, I believe, is because it was at the end of,
We did.
At 5.2 and yeah.
it was at the end of 5.2, everyone and stuff. So. we put it in
Okay,
there.
so in the event a customer, do we mean any customer, any class of customer? Is that what we're trying to refer to here?
Non-residential service.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's a non-residential service customer, then we need,
But the same.
I know you're on me, but we gotta say it.
Well,
You either need a customer.
so if you look at the one right above it, it's basically almost a mere copy of it, because I think that's what we did. We just copied from there, and it's in the, for all those sub bullets as well, I believe. So we could,
Can I ask,
Sure.
is there gonna be a way we can get away from the bullets and actually use, numbers
Yes.
and or subletters and or Romanettes?
5.03.
I mean, I'll do the heavy lifting. It's just, it's,
So
gonna
what do you,
kill
I
me.
think, Lori, what are you describing? Because I know that Jody would have to probably.
Yeah, and instead of.
Oh, that'd be great. Let Jody do it.
A, or B, or C.
she'll do it way better than I will.
Instead of the bullet, it'd be A.
You've already got a numbering
And what you're saying?
in place. You're probably continue on with that, right? So you've got
Yep.
5.03.01.
It's like 5.03, then.
But still-
5.03, A, B, C.
Amen.
You're already doing numbers.
However,
Instead of bullets, it'd be, instead of the first bullet would be an A.
Yeah.
yes,
The second bullet would be
Rob's
B.
head doesn't, it's like, we've gotta have, and I hear you, but I will tell you, the A's make sense to me too. So,
It's fine.
Are you gonna be okay with it?
Numerals and.
We can
Gonna be able
label the
to-
bullet.
Is your OCD gonna?
I can address.
All right, so that's great news. Okay, so
First bullet.
thank you for.
Second bullet.
Okay, so 5.02, I hear you, we copied that thing.
Yes.
And so in 5.02, I mean, I'm gonna suggest in that particular paragraph, we, in the event a residential customer,
Resident.
right?
Okay.
Residential service applicant, a renter.
I don't know why I mean,
Yeah.
that makes it.
Actually, well, they are.
Already,
Yeah, they're a customer. They're not applicant.
Yeah.
So we could just say renter, other contractor, homeowner, yes. That's the,
Oh, I got you. You know what? We'll find a way to shorten that too. How about that? No, seriously, I'm being serious about that.
I want to do the top, no, to redo the numbering system, so if you have made any changes, I would.
Thanks, Rob. We didn't make any changes really. So Bill, in your absence, we did decide to do away with the bullets and actually do sub.
okay.
And the folks seem to be, I offered to actually do it myself and they said Jody could do it.
All right.
So
Yeah, I had to go and address an issue, sorry.
oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
She normally does all these, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, he retains all the documents.
Fits them into the.
Fine.
They look uniform.
So now you guys.
doing it to make
decide.
uniform, they have to go through all the policies. Get rid of any bullets.
And we have a
Yeah.
phone number.
I mean, I would like,
Same format.
Get rid of all.
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that you guys are the guinea pigs for this, but you know,
Right. What we got?
you guys will have the summer away from us.
It's only February, we got.
So
Jeez.
hopefully not. Okay, so at the end of 5.02 in that errant paragraph that's not bulleted even at all, that says in the 5.02.
Above 5.03.
The last paragraph is
Immediately above 5.03. And this is just gonna be a placeholder where it says in the event a customer. Put residential before customer. Make it capital right now, please. Thank you. And then put a note on that one. That says we need to have an identifier for contractors, builders, et cetera, as well, to pull in there. Just because they're defined above, and just put a note that says that I'll come up with something for that. Yep. So,
It's just the one.
So in that line, it need to be a customer with no S or any customer in the previous.
delete the parenthetical S,
In both paragraphs.
yes. And so in this one, in that one you're in right now, put in the event a non-residential customer.
Actually,
Will we not just
looking for
define residential service application?
expectation.
We're gonna define them all.
In the definitions as including builders, contractors, so that we don't have to even talk about them?
Potentially. Yep. That may be the way that it winds up. Yep.
You're 5 minutes away from our halfway mark.
Is a little room open? Is there Diet Coke in there?
Yes. Well, though the room is open.
There's.
Okay. Really? I think I can survive.
I guess
Okay, well, I'm
it's-
taking my own. Good luck, everyone. Take everything you want, more fun.
So everything she struck out, we're right back.
Oh, great, thank you.
We still have four. Yeah, we still do.
Meeting
Joking.
instructions next on how to set that out.
For the external.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he probably said something out internally different too.
She did, I think, in terms.
Are we taking still breaks?
We're not waiting.
Next time we'll do from all staff.
Sorry for that. Did you guys change everything?
Your computer crashed.
I don't think it did. Looks intact. Okay.
Any and, can we say any and all? Rose.
Any and all customers?
Yes.
Just all of you,
Rob is on,
all y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Good flag.
Rob is on. break.
Trying to find, make it,
All
I was just trying to be all
Should I
inclusive
say it?
instead of breaking it. Cause it is just over and over.
Well, I mean, we could make this thing its own numbered thing that does apply to all customers because we put that, you were concerned about putting multiple,
Well,
it's the same paragraph twice.
I know she won't. Should we review back to 5.02s with all the breakouts?
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, I think that,
Go back.
and Angie, I mean, keep me honest here. I mean, I think once we have,
Send you.
after this committee's review of the entirety of the document, there's gonna be some work that has to go back into this anyway to get us to definitions and some of that type of work that
Right,
some consistency before it even goes back out to the committee.
right. And I think that it's always good to look at a clean, the red line version is what it's gonna show, but it's good for everyone to look at a clean version.
With a fresh set of eyes.
Yes, to make sure that it flows and makes that we didn't assume something was still in there when we took it out.
That's right.
Versa.
So, I mean, and we're all gonna have to take part in that, right? I mean, you guys are gonna have to keep us honest and, I mean, I've got notes here, but, I mean, how many weeks we have in between some of these sometimes, so. But, I mean, we could consider that particular paragraph, since it's in this document twice, putting it in as its own 5.0 whatever, and it just applies to everything.
Actually, it's in like 5.
Yeah.
Then we'll take it out 5 times
I think we did end up.
At the end of every section of
Every
5.02 home.
for every different kind of customer that we.
Yes.
Then we should take it out. I mean, I'm not a fan of, so particularly on something like that, if this is gonna apply to everybody,
Well,
then,
And that's why I was saying, like, if you 5.02, we do have, each of the bullets is like duplicate for homeowner to renter to,
Mhm.
but we spelled it out for that particular movie.
well, and we can make a heading that this, I mean, definitely there are ways to do this and to make it, flow better, not as duplicative, right? And five point oh four. Finally got out of 03.
You're welcome.
Um. And I know we have gone over part of this before, so.
I know you took a break today, right?
Oh my gosh, please, everyone else take a break. I just went and grabbed a Diet Coke, but let's take at least a 5-minute break or what folks need to.
Could we add ACH and wire? Not specifically about.
You mean as far as the definition?
Well, it just, a residential deposit we've made in form of cash, money, or credit card, debit card, cashier's check, person's check. Do we need to add ACH?
Do we take deposits that way? I mean, would you take a deposit that way?
There is no deposit by ACH.
Well, it's on their bill.
If they sign for ACH, we waive the deposit. So
We do it for residential customers too?
residential we're doing, yeah. That's when.
The bank draft, not an ACH.
Sorry, bank draft. I'm still back in 2021, like, whatever, before you changed to Lori.
My brain only has one thing, it's credit card, cash, it's all negative.
So where were you reading it? 5.04, is that what you're reading?
Can I pay via Apple Pay, Venmo,
I was just thinking.
all the things that like Paymentus allows, right?
All the.
Because it's all those new things, which, and I'm not suggesting that you do, I just don't know if you would.
There's a lot more of them.
So when you go to Paymentus, there's limits.
Right, I was gonna ask about that too.
Yeah.
So if you're a commercial customer paying via, let's just, say wire, right?
I'll have a break over.
Is 10 5 to 7 minutes. How about that? Is there a limit? Does that limit impose for that transaction as well, or is that like considered a separate payment? Like
Because it's
if you're doing a wire,
an actual wire that the customer is initiating.
let's do an ACH.
Okay.
Sorry.
And,
let's
and,
go back to ACH.
and the ACH, a customer is initiating too.
Yeah,
So there's no limits there.
okay,
So if somebody goes to our website
yeah.
and tries to pay, which is payment as our provider
Yeah,
for that,
roll the song.
it's a $3,500
Okay, but not.
credit limit or limit on a credit card.
On a credit card.
Right.
Okay. Is that because we're eating the fee?
Yes.
Okay, that makes
And-
sense.
And there's if they do an e-check, it's $75,000. So a lot of commercial customers could come in that way and do an e-check. And it's a lot smaller fee. That's why the level is higher.
Okay,
So
that makes sense. What's the cheapest way, if we're gonna eat the fees, what's the cheapest way for us to receive a payment?
probably an e-check.
In each check?
Yeah.
That's what I presumed,
Yeah.
because that always seems to be the cheapest.
Mhm.
Yep, we're good.
Okay,
Do you want me to get rid of anything?
Nah, see.
okay. And so, we had the discussion about how we, try to encourage customers to, pay certain ways.
And I will also say probably us receiving an ACH for the customer is cheaper for us too.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I mean is what's
Yeah,
the least
because we're
expensive
not-
way for us to receive a payment?
Probably ACH or wire, because we're not,
So an e-check from a residential customer.
yeah,
Okay,
or small commercial or somebody.
or, right, okay.
I mean, the limit's 75,000, so that could incorporate probably even medium.
Well, but I think in terms of, when we're talking to, folks in the community about, certain things, right? Including with Community Engagement Committee. You guys know how much we incur in fees every year,
Mhm.
and it's not insignificant. So, if we can save money by directing our customers and encouraging our customers to do something to help, us, this side of things to cut down on our expense,
And
gosh, why
usually,
wouldn't we?
and usually the larger customers, I mean, they're not taking their bill and going into another payment
Sure.
site to, their system is creating that ACH and then
Right.
sending it to us and everything, so.
But I mean, even if we could, encourage, like, I don't have a good feel for percentage of commercial, small businesses, right? I don't have a good feel for percentage of that customer segment that pays how they pay,
Right.
right? I mean, it probably differs.
I was trying to think, we've been developing some dashboards and things like that. I don't know if we've broken it down. I mean, we know how many, credit card, all that stuff. I don't know if we've gotten that granular to know what type of customer it is, but that's.
Well, and I mean, just to the extent that we can, figure out a way to encourage customers to pay a way that is less than a transactional BPU,
Yeah.
it's one more thing of, it's not that difficult for a customer to do, right? Certainly not a residential customer.
A lot of customers use the credit card because they get points and all that.
No, understood, right, and certainly not trying to take that away. I know that I'm mindful about it,
I know it.
because I know what it costs a business to, if I'm paying for, it'd be even a debit/credit card
Mm-hmm,
versus a check,
yeah,
written check.
yeah.
So, no, it's just, again, I know how much we incur in cost for that, so. Okay,
Yeah, 'cause
Trade-off is we get our money faster.
that's right.
And
No, I get it. Sure.
How do we encourage more people to use FlexPay? It's that.
if people don't want to pay a deposit, getting them on FlexPay is the way to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's,
That's-
that ought to be the first, or,
Yeah.
all these customers ought to be the
Yeah,
first
they-
thing there.
But But our customers who may struggle to pay their BPU bill, I don't know what, like, if, like, what percentage of our, let's just use residential right now, okay? What percentage of our residential customer base that represents? I don't know if it's 2%, if it's 25%, I have no clue.
That are on flex pay? Or,
Customers who just generally struggle,
oh,
you know, maybe there's late payments, maybe there's, you know, whatever it is. I don't know what percentage that represents. So,
About 16,000 accounts get late fees every month. That's just not disconnection, those are late fees. What, 25% roughly?
The last number I saw was around 25%. That's when we were talking about changing, trying to even out the workflow at the time, you know, on telephone, lobby and all that stuff and how it peaks. And then if we can maybe change some due dates and stuff on the bills and do some other things and level that workload out, we can better support the customers, but we never really got to that.
okay. So is everyone ready to go again or not? And I'm okay if we're not. So I know maybe we may not have completed that discussion on whether or not we want to change the way in which we receive form of deposit, or I guess maybe expand it some. Cash, money order, credit card, debit card, cashier's check, or personal check. Are there other ways that we would be willing to receive a deposit?
Residential.
I think
That's
that's-
residential, yeah.
You have any other? That's it.
So if I'm on Paymentus and I pay my bill via Venmo, right, because I know it's an option. Could I pay I would be able to pay my deposit that way too, if I'm paying my bill that way, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to like list all the specific things,
It
but
changed too because they add,
right, there's a new payment method every
Yeah.
day, it seems like. So could we just, is there a catch-all to add that?
Or is it third-party payment?
what do they call it?
What are they called?
What do they call it?
Well, those are
Ben-
pay, those are like payouts.
Pay ups, maybe,
But is it,
sure, check
Or approved third-party,
pay apps.
method? Well, but
payment applications?
are we talking about someone who goes to a kiosk or someone that comes
They
directly?
want to pay them, they're going to our website.
That's on online vendor.
Online, and they accept them.
Yeah.
How about, or how about pay via Paymentus or?
Right, but
I don't want to say payment.
Yeah, we don't say payment.
Vendor.
Or payment,
Third-party
payment provider.
billing, or third-party payment?
Or we can say online.
Or payment.
Online, yeah, because that way we don't have to say the name. We've changed several times while I've been here. We don't want to go back and have to redo the policy every time.
Yeah, we don't say take money up.
We don't say Bitcoin. I was like,
goats,
What?
goats, livestock.
Also take.
I have 400 chickens.
where's it at?
Can you make change?
Is it here? Do you see it?
Bitcoins.
Does egg back.
Probably money.
Give you a dozen eggs back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My nest egg. Personal check or online payment.
Yeah, we could take these.
Residential, maybe in the future.
You do online payment, you could take out credit card and debit card, because that's included in the online payment.
But if you call in and you pay your bill,
I say we should probably add by phone.
We still have to transfer pay.
Oh, so do you also, we need to add by phone?
That's still payment, so, right?
Yes.
Paymentus, I mean, but they said if you do online, you have to say phone. I think we're getting.
Online or by phone.
You say cash, you drop it in or mail it or, kiosk.
Add by phone.
Yeah. Online payment, online or phone payment.
Please use telephone payment.
Telephone payment, is that right?
You could do yeah, that's fine. I'm fine. I'm not gonna.
I just want to make,
Online payment,
I want to make sure that they understand that they can't call here and pay it online with our customer service representative.
You know what, this says in the form of,
yeah, I don't think it needs
Okay.
that. In the form of.
so I think online payment still has to be added because just because there are other options and we're trying to do a catch-all for the Venmos, the Apple Pays, or what else we accept. I think there's like like a Prime something.
American Express probably. The PayPal?
PayPal.
On there. PayPal.
PayPal, Zelle, I think Zelle is a new
Oh,
one.
Zelle?
I was gonna pull it up.
I don't know if it's on there, but Amazon
No.
Pay's on there, Walmart Pay,
And Venmo,
Amazon, PayPal, Venmo.
So, or online payment, I mean, would cover whatever BPU offers at that time via Paymentus or whatever its successor.
You could say, or approved online payment method.
These are the ones that are currently out there. Amazon, Venmo, PayPal, credit.
There you go, Robert. Thank you.
I like approved online payment method. Looks like that captures everything.
Thank you.
So
Did they remove some?
What's American, I was going to say, that doesn't seem, what's American Express up there?
Should be for
Should
the
be.
credit.
That's credit card.
It should be for the credit
Going
card.
to credit card payments, so we're gonna add new. Discover American Express.
Okay.
MasterCard. Debit. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Why are,
It's because he has.
He's in his
there.
account.
oh,
That's the same way it comes up on mine. And so that's what I was like, I don't. But yes. If you didn't have a specific one already in there.
Yeah, I always use my bank account and then I have my debit card in there. It's just the two that's. Just grab it, pay by bill.
There was other
numbers.
And it needs
It
it needs payment method or.
or online payment method.
It needs, put your account number in case anyone wants to pay it.
Okay.
I add a line, customers are also free to send me checks. It's not gonna be applied to their account, but. You know. What about the payment forms for non-residential customers?
I think they look okay.
They have the same ability to pay a deposit through an online approved online payment method? A non-residential customer? I guess it depends on the deposit amount, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're not restricting whether they're residential or non-residential for the time. Get on the website, right? or to go
Right.
pay bill.
Correct.
Will the new system have a different portal for commercial versus residential customers?
No.
Awesome. Is that thing live yet?
And it ties in with.
In March.
Well, as an aside, do we have to like go set it up now?
Yeah, it's not available for use.
So it goes live in March. Is the other system gonna work?
It will work until the day that we switch.
Oh. Okay.
We'll actually take the other system down on Friday evening, and then the new system will be up Monday morning, so there will be one weekend where they.
If we disconnect a customer that weekend, please just don't disconnect anybody.
We don't do disconnects on the weekends.
I know, but
Let's make those Fridays.
sometimes things happen, Rob.
Which reminds me.
But yes, we will suspend all of those automated jobs and as part of the plan. Sorry.
Okay, so back to this one. Since we're saying it may be in the form of, it's possible that a commercial customer could do it in an approved online payment method, right? So maybe just add that to this list. And I really didn't think I had anything to that, but just based on what we just did, I did not have anything else in this whole.
So
It'll be very
are you guys okay with me doing it ahead of this, so I don't change this last last line here? So, so starting with an approved online payment method, cashier's check,
I'm okay with that.
Works for me. I'm good with it.
and do you still accept actual checks from the business story for their deposit?
Would you want to add wire?
Does anybody else have anything else in that paragraph?
Good.
Is by crossed out?
We added.
So B, right?
Well, it's by Bauer Financial, they're.
What,
Yeah,
I
okay.
is.
Xed out.
So it actually says our financial, I don't know if that's correct or not. The B is the only thing that's crossed out, not the B, this is Bauer financial.
BAUER?
Correct. It is
You put the V in there, took out the V, right?
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I know we use the word final a lot, it's not actually a word. We should use final.
It's not, but what we're going to do, because I know that is, that is something that is sort of unique to this industry. We're gonna define it. So we make it a capital F, it's a new word.
Yeah, thank you.
See how accommodating this can be, Janetta?
She said capital F.
Did say that.
Boy.
You've already got that note somewhere to add final with the definition.
Well, I got it in my head. Does that count?
I'm adding a comment here, so we've got it too.
I mean, I may as well just start adding the definitions at this point, so I can, so you
Capital
guys
F
can.
too, Rob, capital. F.
Oh, yeah. Um. Okay. So we discussed this one, I know for a fact, back in October. February. And so. So a credit to an account may be delayed if the customer incurred 2 late payment charges during, residential customer incurred 2 late payment charges during the 2-year period immediately preceding when the credit would be due, Is that right?
More than two.
Okay, so two or more. Okay,
Three or
No,
more.
three or more.
Three or more.
So they can have two and they can still have it credited.
three or more.
Yes.
You're trying,
I have a note that this
Okay.
needs to be reworded, so, to make it more clear.
capitalize.
We're not gonna capitalize anything here yet. So can you go through that process with me again, because so this is intended, the note I have from December is that this is intended for ongoing accounts. So accounts that remain active and they're not being finalized. Is that right? Okay. So if I guess what's I'm sure you told me and I apologize, but what's the rationale behind this? Like when a credit is due, because it's not like we're saying the customer's disconnected. The customer just incurs late payment charges, which in fact, it's an ongoing account, they paid it. So help me.
So what you're trying to say is why would we, if they've gotten late payment charge, because now, when I look at this, there's a potential. If a customer is consistently paying late, a lot of times, sometimes the customer will have disconnects on their account as well. But there is.
So three or more
Yeah, we're-
late payments in a 2-year period means a customer's a bad payer. I mean, is that what our thinking is? I guarantee you, I've got late payment charges on my bill that I paid. And I guarantee you I have three or more because I forget to pay the bill. And I don't think I'm a bad payer, but BPU probably does think I'm a bad payer. So now I'm like got credit issues.
You like to be on flex pay.
We can sign you up for text message reminders.
I have text messages, reminders that come sometimes, honestly. And I'd like to talk about the wording of those at some point too. But, because they're harsh, but also I do go immediately in and pay it. Don't get me wrong. I think, well, my thought on that honestly is this. And not because they're coming to me, because I know it is what it is. And I'm an idiot because I didn't pay my bill. But I think the tone that we're using toward customers is a negative tone. And I don't think that that's, if we're trying to sort of, I know you guys don't maybe think so, but I think some of us think so. We're trying to restore, BPU's reputation with our customer base.
Right.
So.
I don't think we ever have meant something to be a negative tone, but only a factual.
I hear you,
But so if it comes across as that we look at that, for things, something different. But
Well,
I don't try to be
I
negative.
think we all look at our customer base. We all hear from our customer base. I think customer service hears from our customer base more than anybody else
sure.
possible, right? So we have a sense of where our community is too, okay? And those are not always just the people that go and complain to the board. There's a wider audience out there that we deal with, okay? So how we get there, what messages we send, I would like to focus on the policies, not on, text messaging and things like that, because
Well, but I
that's
think
really outside the.
If I have 3 or more late payments in a 2-year period, I'm a bad customer.
I know.
No, and I think that's where we started with this.
I know.
And so I think we're starting from a place of, despite the fact that people are paying these late payment charges,
Okay.
which sometimes are not insignificant, right? We're still considering that customer a bad payer, despite the fact that, oh my gosh, I forgot to pay my bill, or it's 2 days later, whatever it is.
And I wanted to get back there with you, so.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I'm,
Not the text
If
message.
there's data on, the point of the deposit is we're trying to assess the risk of, we don't want to end up not getting payment for usage. For folks who don't have any late payments or 1 or 2, we're making the assumption, okay, we've assessed the risk, it's low enough, we could live without the deposit. Do we have any data on the likelihood of someone who's had 3 late payments versus someone with 1 late payment or 6 late payments on where that threshold is, right? And we, intuitively, it makes sense, reading it, the more late payments you have, probably the
More likely.
more like, yeah, the less comfortable we are carrying that risk without a deposit forward.
Even if the customer has paid all of those late payment, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not talking about disconnection. I understand when we get to that level. I get it. But if you have a customer that consistently, I understand they're late paying, but they're also paying, they're paying the penalty for it, right? They're consistently paying late penalties. Apparently that's me, but.
So, I guess at this point, this kind of reflects what we determine and what we see as, the potential for a credit risk to the utility. What are you suggesting?
Is this automated? Or is this a manual process?
This process. is
It's
not-
automated, yeah.
the system won't refund the deposit. If this scenario is met.
It's not holding the deposit forever at that point, right? It's,
Then we drop it down to 12 months. So we'll reassess every 12 months after you've reached your 2-year period. So again, what is your suggestion?
Again, I'm.
Janetta, how, I mean, we go through this also. So when you look at the wider utility industry, we always compare our policies there, okay? So are we outside that group of other utilities? Is this something totally unique that we're doing, or does it line up with what the industry? I would say best practice, but we're all have determined the best practice is. We want to deviate from that, then okay.
What we were discussing down here is when we set up these policies, we compared them and looked at all the other policies. We haven't reviewed it lately. But however, when we set it up and first presented them, that's when we went through all the policies.
That was 4 years ago when we sat down with Rose and went through the policies. And I know, Rose, you just got Kim on the board, so.
Then we did meet in 2020 and then.
Yes.
And
So
I
we've kind
think
of gone
the-
over it 3 times. 2017 was when it was first presented. 2020, we went back and redid some of them, and then 22 was a cold 22.
I'm not talking about cold weather, I'm just talking about a full
Well,
policy.
I would say that's the last time we really looked at, but it was just that specific. policy.
So this specific policy,
No,
we're talking,
22 was when we looked at just cold weather. 2020 was when this was approved.
okay, but was this segment in 5.05, the second paragraph, was it new in 2020? Do you recall?
Yes, that would have been new. I think so. I don't think so. It would have been 17.
I think it was in the original.
17, this, I think.
Yeah.
So it was new in 2017.
Yeah.
So this is a 100-year-old utility, and up until 2017, I mean, this is the best way in 2017, the utility figured out that it can evaluate risk for customers who chronically pay late but may have credit scores over 8.
What I would say is it probably was in place prior to that. Prior to 2017, I believe there were no policies. We put these policies in place. There were no customer service policies. And so we put these policies in place. We gathered. how
We
many
leveraged
different
a lot of-
utilities?
I don't think I ever knew that until right now. That's amazing.
Independence.
We took all the policies and we.
Yeah.
The kind of practices.
These-
Gotcha.
That's what.
so it's possible this practice has predated 2017. We just going through that process codified it.
Yes,
Yes.
this has been the process but we.
They were just kind of entered.
Every other policy.
Standard operating procedures or whatever, and now we've moved it to.
Well, I think the question, Rose, tell me if I'm hearing you right, that you're getting at is right now the policy assumes that someone who has had late payments but made the payments, right? Is
Is a-
more of a credit risk moving forward to someone who only
That's
had
right.
2 or 1 or 0. Is there a way to pull data on that, on what our experience has been there? have the folks who meet that criteria, has having that deposit saved us, down the road?
So I would say this, as long as it's still an active customer, looking at the fact that there are a number of customers whose deposit has not been refunded, means they continue to be in that pattern of being late or being a.
It wasn't average and,
customer.
yeah.
Yeah, so at that point, it's, I think in the utilities benefit to have that deposit, or if they final the bill, because if a customer finals their account, finaled with the capital F
Mhm.
and the way we're gonna define it, finals their account and then moves out of our county and doesn't pay their bill, which means now there is no reason to not be late, not be delinquent, not get disconnected because they don't have an account here, but they have a balance here.
Right.
So if we have nothing in the beginning to put toward that balance to even lower it somewhat, now we're just paying collection agencies, people in the utility, Kansas set off to collect for us, and now we only get a percentage back.
Do we
So
have data on that?
something of who we send to collection agencies.
Of who finals their bill and we don't have a means to collect that because we don't have a deposit on.
Well, if we have a deposit, then we at least have something towards that.
I'm just saying, do we have data on what percent? I mean, again, is this a 1% issue? Is it a 0.05% issue?
I think we would have to look at our write-offs.
Then,
I think we would have to look at our write-offs, and we all know that our write-offs are very high.
So Rose, let me say this. I mean, there's one of the frustrations I think we have is the type of reports and the information available in our billing system. That's why we're having to develop all these other reports and do all these other analytics outside. So as we come up with new things, I mean, this is an ongoing project for us to try to better understand, what's going on because the system may not deliver that type of information to us. So we're gonna have to, extract it ourselves and put it into some type of report so that we can better understand it.
So I guess what I'm, at the bottom line is this something that's acceptable, or is there an alternative? How long, how many? How long, how many? What would be the suggested?
I
Final comment on that. Ask those type of questions, okay, but the answer is we may have it, we may not, but it may.
No, I hear you, and I understand what you're saying, and I mean, look, this isn't just for me to decide in a vacuum, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these guys have to be comfortable with it, and then the rest of the board has to be comfortable with it. But this is one I'm going to flag as something, that makes me a little queasy. And I gotta think about, Janetta, to your point, what would make me less queasy? I don't know yet, right? I mean, it's a good, maybe nothing. Maybe this is what it has to be.
And when we talk about it may be delayed, well, it may not be delayed, or what are we talking about on a delay? Are we talking about days, a week, to figure it, or a year?
It would be the 12. So if they don't meet this criteria, then we'll reevaluate it again in 12 months.
Would it be more accurate to change may to will? I mean, is there any exception to that? Again, not trying to change the practice, but
The system does it.
This is, that's in Hinge.
So like from their last late payment charge, it's the 12 months from there. It will be.
and that change might be premature, Rose, if you want to bring revisions suggested next time, but if it stays the same, roughly, it might be more accurate to just say that.
So you're saying the may to will and the opening of the third paragraph for 5.05?
And so Tom, what we're saying about that 12 months is if.
I think those things may be delayed to will be delayed in the second paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just finished up with time. So what we're saying on that is in 2 years, it's reassessed, the system looks at it and if it says, okay, they have 5. So now we're saying that it will not be refunded. But within that next 12 months, it doesn't say we're gonna look at, you've had these, and that next 12 months, it's gonna give you an opportunity to still get 2 or less. So if you don't get 3 or more, but now in a 12-month period. So now it shortens for you because it's in 12 months and it'll look and it'll see if, as long as you have not gotten 3 or more in that next 12 months, then it will be refunded.
Do we have data on, How many of our customers use auto pay?
Yeah.
Meaning bank draft?
Meaning it's a recurring timely withdrawal every month.
Bank draft.
We have
Uh-huh.
scheduled payments like through payments and stuff probably as well, because those are. They're scheduled, they schedule it like day of the month or on a bill cycle or whatever.
How many, Jeanette, do you remember how many are on bank draft? I don't know that I've looked at that for a while.
13,000,
I think the last one was 13.
I think.
I can look.
The last report.
I can assure you by the end of this weekend, it's gonna be 13,001. Not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous.
I want to say there's like 4,000 through Paymentus.
We're with you, okay?
Which isn't.
I hear you.
Ah,
I'm still getting dinged with the late payment, but I'm also a bad payer. Don't tell John Henry.
John Henry.
Don't tell John Henry. Yeah, no, I get that nasty text message.
There's some things we never tell.
Well, you know, that's okay to ask you is, I know if I look at if I pull up the account, it does not have like what your deposit is on that account, right? That's not anywhere on the account that I've seen before.
File.
Right, and so in the new system, is that going to be? I mean, that might motivate me, like if there's like $500 out there that John Henry paid once upon a time, Lori. I mean, I may wanna, get my payment history in order so I can get that thing credited back eventually.
Has this deposit back.
Ah, you know him, come on, he probably does it.
It's sent to Dave.
Like, I'm not even gonna go there. Okay,
How would you know that you got your deposit back?
Hmm?
How do you know if you got your deposit back?
It's credited on your BPU bill.
but like, if you've had a BPU bill for 40 years, like, do you guys even have a record of, I mean, I'm sure you do, but like, how long do you keep?
We would show, our records will show there's no deposit, but the customer, if they can remember back then.
You
Can't remember yesterday, Lori.
What's the credit?
Like I'm on level payment and I'm on AC8 and withdrawal. I've been that way for years
Probably got the deposit back early on in
and I never knew it.
Right. And
I would have credited.
Well, but I never look at my,
I mean, you do know we have
I know what my
50
bill's gonna be.
payers here in this community.
So it changes. I never look at it. So I wouldn't, I'd never.
Yep.
So the last, for ACH, the last one was 13,154 as of about a month ago.
Thank you.
Bank draft,
Mark, for those customers that
Bank draft.
log in,
I read what Nick sent.
not ACH.
log in the self-service and be able to get to their billing information, is there a field that can be produced
Is there a?
earlier?
That shows that they have a deposit or not. Rob?
Is there a space to have a field available? Customers call in the self-service, they bring up their bill, they bring up the other information. Is there a place that we can add a field to show deposit?
Can definitely add a field, that's not hard, making sure that it represents the right deposit amount for each account. I don't know, I'm asking Rhonda a question on the very topic right now.
We'll follow up.
We could potentially, if it is Kayenta, also do a customization to the new portal, but that would take a couple of months of development.
Something to think about long-term.
And there would be.
Okay, so on that one, I would like to think about it further to make me less queasy, but again, this is not just a me decision, it's the other board members as well, so. But I thank you for recounting what the rationale is, I appreciate that, and I have made the note of it.
You go ahead and make the change for credit may be delayed, credit will be delayed.
They ask all the time, what are our write-offs? Oh, it's millions, so
I would say so.
anything to bring that down.
I think at least as a placeholder, it's possible future revisions might eliminate the need for that, but as it sits now, that's helpful.
As long as that, again, I just want to make sure that actually reflects practice and I'm not changing anything up on you.
The only time it didn't was during COVID.
That's what I was thinking.
During
So-
COVID, customers were late or
Rose.
something, we didn't
I
assess
was just thinking maybe if we wanted to add something.
the
in there
penalties and
about
stuff, so it didn't
Versus. late
impact the
fees,
system.
like-
They still refunded their.
The system did because
Okay,
it didn't,
because of that, yeah.
it didn't get dinged
they didn't
appropriately.
get
So many disconnects.
So the issue there is we
Versus
decided
late
not to
fees.
assess any late payments during the moratorium.
Maybe.
So they're not accumulating those.
But if you, but I mean,
The system's automated. If it doesn't see any late payments in 12 months, then you meet the requirements.
I guess, just speaking for myself, I'm more comfortable with it saying will, knowing in a catastrophic instance.
Going forward, I
Yeah.
think we're trying to combat the fact that if we get into a situation like that, that we would still
Yeah.
have the system identify that it was late, but just not charge the.
Cause I think what I would just wanna make sure is that the customer reads it there. Again, if you guys aren't exercising some discretion that is mysterious to them, that they know that this applies blanket, everyone's treated the exact same.
Right.
I did make a note to myself on these last two paragraphs that say the exact same thing except for the different customer segments to consolidate that. You're welcome.
Thank you. Easier on the eyes.
Understood.
Yeah, with the definitions, I think you can consolidate a lot of them and just have those definitions in there.
That's the hope.
Teamwork.
Makes the dream work. Okay, so that's certainly all I had in 5.04. Anyone else?
5.05.
5, sorry.
Just testing.
We can go back to 4.
No, go back to 3 for a while. We're almost broke at 7.1 2 months ago.
I guess, Laura, the only, or
3 months ago.
for one of the bottom two paragraphs, either one since they're duplicates. If we do hold on to it, it'll be more than 2 years, but it says on there that it would be credited with interest 2 years after they pay the deposit. So if we actually hold it for, say residential for 3, would they get it for the whole time that we?
Yeah, every year, there's an interest rate.
Right.
So if we hold it for 2 years, 10 years, whatever, whatever that interest rate is within that year, they're getting it calculated on that.
Involuntary savings account.
Yeah,
So we should probably say, instead of just stating 2 or 3, we should say probably more of like, since it's been paid or something.
potential credit. Deposits may be credited to customer account with interest.
You make that a little bigger, Rob.
We're talking about the second to the, so residential may be credited.
The resident, yeah. I'm looking at, if I'm a residential, you've held it for 3, I'm only getting the last 2 years. Does
Interests.
that make sense?
What do we need to add there?
Well, then
I would
for-
say probably customer's account with interest upon successful completion of minimum term of payment history.
Well, like for the last one, the non-residential, if you've held it for more than 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it only says 3. So that's what, based on from when it was assessed or when it was paid or something.
I mean, that's really what we're saying when we say 2 years and 3 years.
Right.
When you're gonna get your deposit back, not what the interest is, but. I don't know, you might add, you could probably say interest will.
When they get their deposit, interest will be added when they get their deposit back.
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Just take out the time frame.
Yeah.
And the timeframe is related to when you would get your deposit.
Right.
Right, but we've already spelled that out
Yeah,
in previous paragraph.
You just want to strike out with 2 years and with 3 years. Let's count after the customer has paid it,
yeah.
or actually.
Residential deposits may be credited to the.
You say with interest.
Account with interest.
After the
As
customer is
determined.
paid.
Not to,
Yeah.
Or as interest, or with interest as determined by the Kansas.
If you're making that change, do you want to change it to will again as well? Because once they have completed that, it's automatic.
Yeah.
Will here, yes.
yeah, because I think may was because it may not be just 2 years, but if we're already covering that in the other language, then it
Does become on there.
We're gonna try to combine, I think, the bottom two
I know, but just in case they don't get combined, I'd like. them to both have the same.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, I think with the time frame, and because people wouldn't be like, well, am I getting my interest as it goes?
Yeah,
So if you're holding it after 2 months, do I get that interest 2 months and then continue to get that interest until I get it back? I think is what we were trying to stay away from.
Is that interest taxable income for folks?
I don't know, unless the state sends something out. We don't do anything.
We only pay enough interest to not lose value, not enough to actually gain value, so. the value-
Somebody, who's had their deposit in there since
Yeah.
1980.
Now, if you
Might
made
have enough to
thousands and
get
thousands of
$600.
dollars in interest already, the additional interest that you assessed on ours, you should technically report, but that's up to you.
We good to go to 6.01?
Yeah, that's section 5.
I know you weren't expecting it. Here we are. I've got revisions to this one. Hopefully, all the content remains the same. It's just wording it differently to make it hopefully flow better. So Rob, you want to take this down so we can put it up there and folks can tear it apart? Okay. So at the beginning, if a customer provides lowercase fraudulent information or material representations. That's all right. Well, is it easier just to retype it?
Whatever you.
Well, whichever's easier for you.
Sorry.
Sorry. I kept the majority of it, but helps. Okay, if the customer provides before, at the very beginning. Or if a customer, sorry. Lowercase f on fraudulent. Okay, and go down to the end of the first line, strike through made. Material misrepresentations, strike through made. Yep. In order to obtain service, comma. This may result in. And we can discuss. If it may actually be a will, this will result in. No, it's may, sorry. Sorry. Okay, may result in colon. Little parenthetical A. I know, here we go. Sorry.
Roman numeral 1.
Not a Romanet yet. KCBPU apostrophe S. Strike through will be cause for. After discontinuance of service, semicolon. Little b. A deposit may be imposed for reconnection. Semicolon. You can just strike all the rest of that because you just retyped it, so you're good. Just strike all that. For reconnection, just through reconnection, strike. Okay, and little c, strike well, sorry, after reconnection and little c. Strike as well as the customer must bring their account to a zero balance, so that all that stays the same.
Capital T. Or the
For what?
capital T.
No.
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 Oh, so you want all these should be lowercase?
Oh, yeah,
Except for that one?
yeah. And there's an extra letter in may result in on the second line in the middle.
You want that J there?
I mean, up to you, I
See
guess.
if anyone catches it.
Okay, so, sorry. Again, conceptually, it is all the exact same. It's just worded a little bit differently. And I'm not married to the little A, B, and C, but however we do the naming or the numbering convention.
Should this actually read, for A, KCBPU's refusal to provide service or discontinuance of service? Because the way it reads now, refusal to provide or discontinuance of service?
This may result in KCBPU's refusal to provide or discontinue service. Discontinue, I don't know. Provide or
Provide service or discontinuance of service, or we good with this one of service?
KCBPU's refusal to provide or in KCBPU's refusal to provide. I actually think it actually makes sense the way it is now that I read it for the third time. I don't know. I'm not married.
And or just continue.
The result in KCB's refusal to provide. Maybe refusal to provide service. Or discontinuance of service. Of existing I don't know.
Because it'll depend on what the current status of their account is.
That's right.
So if they're
That's right.
currently connected, we would discontinue. If they're currently active, then we would.
But I understand the refusal was throwing me, so.
Is it over explaining to say provide new service or discontinuance of existing service?
I think that's fine.
And I think C has to be changed because this may result in, and you've got A and B.
Okay, and so C's it standalone.
Standalone, and then just say. Period, all, in addition, customer must bring their.
That takes up the sentence entirely.
Mhm.
Should, and the customer must bring their account.
In addition, comma, the customer must bring their account to a zero balance.
But strike and capitalize the I in addition. Are we starting a new sentence there?
That's correct.
Strike and capitalize I.
Yeah. Which means we'll have to go back and change a semicolon to a period and then probably. have a
Impose for,
conjunction
that's
between
right.
Clause A and B. We need to make. At the end of A. Do we need a conjunction for A and B? So
Yes.
now it's not a list anymore, it's just the two.
This is one of those things where you almost need to take the tracking off and view it to see.
I almost said that, but I was like,
See
I'm
what it
maybe
looks
the
like.
only one that needs that at this point. but-
No, that,
I can type it up clean below, it would make it easier to read.
No, I mean, if you just.
can you just take the track
You just
changes
take
off that? Just
take it
accept
off,
that
put it
in,
right back on.
accept that in for now. Just that paragraph. What the hell?
Just,
No, all right. I don't want to risk messing up the entire time. Sorry.
zero balance has a history with me. When I first tried to go on level pay, I was told, I called or the new phone system, whatever, we still had problems getting in and hung on the line for an hour. Finally talked to somebody and they said, well, you have to have a zero balance to be able to go on level pay. And the only time your account is zero is because they were taking it out of my, you know, the automatic payment was between when it's drawn out of your bank account and you got about 4 or 5 days to where you're zero, you got a zero balance. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll call back next month. I'll know, pay attention to when the money's taken out of my account and I'll call back and do it. They'll keep in mind. Call back a month later. I know I had, you know, took it out that the day before, so I thought I had a zero balance. Call and the customer service rep said, well, you can only do this when you have a zero balance. I said, I understand that. They took money out yesterday. Well, we had something or something and I got credited and I had a credit of about $6.
You paid too much?
I had a credit.
Zero.
I had a credit of about $6. And they said, we can't put you on a level payment plan because you have a zero balance. I'm going, God damn it, I'm not gonna hang on the phone for another hour to go through this another month. I said, keep the $6, just put me on a level payment plan. I don't care about your $6. I'll just make it zero. Oh, we can't do that. I said, okay, fine, click. And about, I don't know, a half hour later, I get a call back and they said, sir, we understand that you were probably a little upset. And I talked to my supervisor and she said that because you have a credit and not a debit, that we can go ahead and put you on level payment. Thank you very much.
That was all cleared up.
Huh?
That was all cleared up. I'm glad that was all cleared up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was my zero balance.
right.
I have added somebody Verizon 20 years ago. I was on auto trade. They kept disconnecting me and I'd call and they'd say, you have a zero balance. We can't pay a zero balance. So you can't get reconnected. And their only solution to this reoccurring problem was to take me off auto pay. Because they couldn't fix it.
And that's, I think that's probably why, of course, they said it was because the system will only calculate it with a zero balance and they probably talked to the supervisor. Did some manipulation of it and they could do that, where a rep couldn't. Talk to them and say, hey, no, we can do this. We'll have to manipulate this and get it on there, but the system only says, and it can only do so much, so. Yes, I know that could be frustrating. That was credit, I can't do that, but.
It's funny, I don't care.
Okay, so are we good with 6.01 as revised, or do we need to change it further? Does it read?
I'm good with it.
My only concern is we're very specific and just the fact to obtain service. And I'm trying to figure out if there's any other reason that they could provide information that could potentially be fraudulent, which wouldn't be to obtain service, but for some other reason, then we're limited.
What if we got somebody making a payment with a fraudulent credit card or somebody else's credit? You have to penalize them in this way for that.
No,
No, we would just.
they have to contact their bank and.
Yeah, they have to do it through them. All they normally get on their account is probably a return
What is
that
this,
need to be handled.
what scenario would we be discontinuing existing service?
Is it if we had discovered that originally they provided fraudulent information, we just weren't aware until after service had been.
They different service too and stuff. I just want to make sure that we're not pigeonholing ourselves into just this one area, but they could provide fraudulent information.
If they provided fraudulent technical information, or, if it was a safety, I mean, this isn't necessarily limited to money, is it? I mean, I know it's in the customer
It's
service.
broad to obtain any service, right? So whether this would be electric service, water service, or engineering services, or anything like that, this would all apply to that.
So you could disconnect, so.
Would you say if a customer provides fraudulent information or material misrepresentations to KCBPU regarding any applicable service? So that it's not just to obtain?
Yeah.
So if we take out,
I like that.
I like that regarding.
I like that.
I like that.
I like that. I do.
Don't say I never did anything for
I was
this.
just gonna take that whole line out in order to this may result in.
I kind of agree, because it already says may result in,
Mhm.
so we're not blocking into.
Rose, I
anything.
think he's
So if a
wanting
customer
your.
provides fraudulent information on
wordsmith.
material representation, this may result in.
That's okay. Jeanette is talking about a different, so don't, hold on. So she's saying to KCBPU and take out in order to obtain service,
That's
period.
fine.
You,
If you.
It's broader, but
Yeah,
it covers all of it.
Let's say if you provide that to us and for anything, or any.
okay, so let's think about that in terms
Okay.
of it. I'm not saying that people should be providing fraudulent or material misrepresentations for any reason, but what other reasons would people provide information to BPU if it's not related to
And
service?
that's what I was asking is what else, what other
I mean,
situations do we collect? And I was thinking, well, if they add a person onto their account,
But it would be regarding the service.
but
They might not
they've
be
already
able to
had
obtain it. It would
service.
be-
But so you're able to disconnect. I'm just saying, we're taking out the obtain.
Right.
But we're saying to KCBPU regarding an applicable service.
So you think it's.
Could be electric, could be water, could be,
It's for everything. So let's say a customer calls in and impersonates someone that they're not to get information off a service. I mean, that's not to obtain a service, but they're just trying to get information on an account. And so would that cover this? Because I know we've had some people that have done that.
So are you talking about like a stalker situation?
That or we're just
Divorce.
trying, we had a whole situation with, divorce,
Well,
somebody
so-
still getting into that account.
So you have a process for me getting access to Rose account, right? So let's say something happens to Rose, I'm a family member, I'm somebody related, I want to have access to it. So we go through this process of proof and verification, right? Is it possible with what you're asking for any of that to be fraudulent?
Yes, I mean, if you don't, if you shouldn't have access to that account, because anybody that's normally previously
The
been married
information
to
they're
you,
providing.
or that, they could be a person that's not authorized.
did we recently change? And I think we did, I think you guys said this, we recently changed, we now have the ability if I want to go in and pay my sister's account, but I'm not on her account, we have like a guest payment option now. Like if I have the account number or whatever, I can go pay it.
Yeah.
Should we?
That was I think that was a suggestion that Gabby had made, where Bill had said, can we come up with something?
I've said I want.
It was, but we can't give you their information. And
No, I'm not saying, I mean,
that's what we were trying to figure out a way. But it was with Paymentus to maybe have where you could put in, but you'd have to put in something to indicate
I know Kansas Gas Service has it.
their address,
For a
their
fact.
name. So some people don't know last word of social, they don't know.
No, I get
Yeah.
that, but I mean,
Way of-
but if I'm getting that information from my sister, but I'm not authorized on her account, my sister is incapacitated, right? Which is a real life situation. I still need to be able to go in and pay her bill. I don't want to I don't care if I'm authorized on her account or not. Y'all want the money.
I
I
agree.
mean, we're making it hard for people to pay.
So,
Right,
but, and I agree with all that, but now, and I'm just asking, what if your check bounces?
And
Does
and I
that
believe
happens?
that happens.
So does that fee go on the,
Yes, it does.
As it should. I mean,
This connection can go on there as well.
except if I say I didn't tell her to pay? I didn't authorize her to pay.
The new portal will give the customers the ability to provision access to their accounts to anybody that they want without
Right.
going through us.
Mhm.
So that would be your sister giving you information on her account, which is totally okay.
Right.
Much better than us giving you access to her account. So in the new portal, if your sister sets you up, you'll be able to get things on her account.
But
Yeah.
But
If
something
she gets right.
unexpected should happen where someone didn't go proactively set other people up on their
If
accounts.
we don't have a way of like do, we should be giving extra access.
Yes.
But that's the thing is, I mean, when you go on Kansas Gas Service to make a guest payment, you don't have to have access. I mean, you may have to have the address and that's it. And I know because I do it for my brother-in-law all day long.
What did they ask for, you know?
No,
Yeah, I think that's what we just need to know, something
let me tell you.
that wasn't private that we
The
could
second part.
put in there.
If Rose is making payments against that account, Cause this is coming too, she's making payments. And she gets some acknowledgement that payment has been made against that account. And the answer there is still no, I believe, right?
No, and the account should get that information and the account holder, certainly not me in that instance, for sure.
Not unless we can have some just general receipt that says this payment was,
Okay.
received.
Or received, okay, okay, I'm trying
Received
to,
this,
I'm
but
trying to remember what the question came up.
if you put in specific information, maybe it could say this payment was received.
Oh, it's received, right, okay.
Maybe address or something that you put in our name.
This is Kansas Gas Services make a guest payment. They ask for either the billing account number, phone number, or address. And then you need to provide that information.
Is it or both?
So if you do phone number, you need last name, first name, type of account, and phone number.
That's a lot.
Address.
The address, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing that's the first and
So
last
when it
name
says-
on the account. And
It
not
only
you.
requires the last name once you're in it.
Yeah, 'cause that's when it started.
What's 66104? Now, I obviously have access to that account, so I'm just doing this differently, but
He's got it up there, Rose.
He's got it off the board.
He's got it.
I know, but I'm actually doing it for real. Like,
I'm looking at my address.
Well, then Rob, remember the new portal, make a one-time payment, it's account number and birthday. It's not last four of the social
Anymore.
or
Well,
outside.
if you do if you want to do a one-time payment, it's account number and name. It's not even.
yeah, so this pulls it up literally by the house number, no street name, zip code, and last name. That's what will allow me to pull it up by.
You can put it house number,
The account.
zip code, and name.
Last name,
Last
I
name.
only need the last name, only need the numbers on the house and the zip code. And that allows me to look this up,
House.
last name, house number, and zip code.
Right.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about just one payment.
So anybody,
Yeah.
Primarily.
Currently, but I'm talking about-
anybody that you know,
Just account name. That's what we're talking
Anybody.
about, People that are still.
that you know their last name, their house number, which you can find easily because most addresses are public, and the zip code, it allows you to access their account,
Make a payment.
Only to make a payment.
but it says look up account.
It does, but, so
What
then
if
I'm
it's
clicking on the
last
thing, so,
So, Ms. Rose?
yeah,
The new portal, we do have a guest, or not guest payment, we do have the ability to make a payment from outside the portal without. Yeah, on name on account and account number, so I can answer these questions, potentially be able to make payments.
And this is what most people don't have. When they call us, they do not have the account number.
no, I mean, I know what mine is, and you know, I want you kind of look it up to see if there, but you don't know, you gotta look at your files and see if there's a deposit on mine. Cause I gotta get this stuff straight. I feel like if I die next week and Jonetta's like, she was a bad payer, that's gonna haunt me.
I don't look at that.
No, but-
actually.
On this, name on the account, it needs to be exact. So if there's middle initials on there, on the bill,
Mhm.
that needs to be included. So if you just put in first and last
That's
name,
what Rob said.
it'll error.
He put in
Well,
Rob.
and I'm telling you, I mean, there are other utilities in our
Oh, yes.
market that do the thing.
So I know, we need to, and we need to. Did you see what information it pulled up? Well,
I can't pull it up on the phone. I will do this and I will send it to
We need
you.
to-
I'll screenshot it and send it to you later to
Rob.
show you.
Rob, you had
We
it.
need to
so-
Clarify that. 'cause
For the meeting. we're
I
gonna-
don't know why they're asking for birthday on there.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, all I provided on this was my full name and my account number. So if you, as long as you can get your account number, then I can make a payment. But you need the name as it exactly appears on the account and the account. Numbers. This is the new portal. You were saying.
Can we do it without the account number? Rob, we'll circle back, try to figure out how to be the account.
I'll show you guys what I could find just using that only. Now, again, I have access to the account otherwise, but I don't think I can see anything other than to make a payment.
Okay. So thanks. And so we'll look on their even, Rob, maybe and just have just like a guest, see if we can do something that says guest pay. Like they do.
Yeah, I agree, so.
Okay, so back to whether or not we just keep this as misrepresentations to KCBPU and just leave it at that. Angie, what are your thoughts on whether or not to add regarding service, or you just want to keep it as make anything to KCBPU? Because I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. And you guys brought up an example of trying to, you know, I guess maybe impersonating someone.
I don't think it should be in order to obtain service because.
No, that's what we're saying. But what we suggested was
Regarding service.
regarding an applicable service. But
But I think technically someone could say. Wasn't about the service, it was,
This wasn't about me obtaining service, it was about me avoiding the deposit. This wasn't about me obtaining service,
This
it was
is-
about me.
for my financial
But
well-being.
how are we defining service?
We have.
well, we are defining service,
Okay,
right? And
But if we're gonna go there, then
no, that's right.
Right, so that may depend, that's a very good point. It may depend on what that definition is.
I don't see a downside to the broader language, though.
Like what Jeanette suggested, because you've already got, you're not,
If you determine it's something irrelevant, right, doesn't, I don't know what scenario it is where someone provides fraudulent information, but it,
Or material, the
Right.
material makes it sort of relative.
but if there is something that fits the first line, but you all determine is not relevant, you're not bound to disconnect their service.
Right,
I guess I just like that because it leaves the door open. If there's something we're not considering right now, this language would still encompass it.
right, because if someone like calls in and is setting up their accountant says, oh, I have a Ferrari, and they don't, you know, that doesn't matter, so they're still gonna proceed.
Right.
But we, you know, I think the things that we have gotten are fraudulent leases, rental agreements,
And I
ID.
absolutely, I've thought about that. Now, but you're only getting those because BPU requested them in relation to a service. But I'm perfectly fine leaving this just at KCBPU if everyone else is. Okay, so 7.1. I think the thing that tripped us up, and I think why that particular comment is there is if circumstances warranted. And I think what we talked about at that time, Brett, really for your edification is, you know, this being based on fraud-related issues with landlords and whatnot. So I don't know that we had any objection to that. I don't recall any objection to that. I think we were asking questions and that's what it was, so.
That's helpful.
Okay. Okay, so I did have a question on the next paragraph, not numbered or bulleted, that says when someone is added to an existing account, how is someone added to an existing account?
So they'll call into customer service and we'll ask them if they want to be authorized or if they want to be added. And if they're added, they're considered financially responsible. So we'll request their ID and their social security number. And then we'll send a notification back in writing that they've been added to the account. They have full access. So when they're added, they can make changes. They can stop service, set up flex pay, do arrangements, you know, anything the primary account holder can do. And then we also put on there now that they're financially responsible for the account.
It seems to me, I remember an instant or a gal, a lady. She had a son who was an adult over 18, living in I think there was an apartment, might have been a house. And she didn't want him to be responsible, you know, he was going to school, he was, you know, had no responsibility. But we were trying to force her to put her son's.
So the only way we do that if he's listed on the paperwork. So if it was like a rental agreement and he was listed as a responsible person on the lease, then we would consider them responsible for the utilities also. But if he was living there, I mean, we only know who's living there based off the paperwork we received, so. Like in these cases, somebody can move in with them later and they just want to add.
For some reason, in the rental, they're renting an apartment or whatever, and the apartment rental people forced her or had her put his name on the
lease.
rental.
Right, that would be the only way we know he's there, unless they tell us.
And even though and he's on there on the rental agreement, even though she says he's not responsible, he's a minor, or not a minor, but my son, we would still require him to be on the account.
Currently, we do, yes.
And I believe they do that for anybody 18 over, which they consider an adult. Anyone that we get from an apartment complex that has told them that they will have somebody living there 18 and older, they make them responsible as well. And we do the same. They put them on the lease.
I know she was really irate about it. She didn't want kids on her. We talked about some type of consent, that written consent or something otherwise, that the account holder, when they add somebody on to that account, that they acknowledge that that person also will now be responsible, and the person entering the account would also have that full understanding that they will be responsible. Trying to remember how that conversation ended.
I think
And
that's
that
when
one
we
you-
added someone, but I think that's because their name wasn't on the paperwork.
Right.
When their name is on the paperwork that we received, we automatically put them on there.
And then those happen sometimes when it's after, not initially, when they want to add someone.
I think that's what Bill was talking about.
So here's my bill. If I add my daughter name to my account, and if I fail to pay, I have unpaid balances due to BPU, because my daughter's name is on there, she becomes responsible for that as well, right?
If you add her.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, if you
But
put
if
her
I-
on there, but
if
there's
I
different.
add my daughter to my
There's
account.
different ways to do it. That's what I was going to tell you. She didn't talk about this off, right?
Well, and so that's has led me to type some notes that we need to identify an authorized user, right? Because that's somebody who becomes financially responsible.
They can be listed as authorized or just added to the account. So if they're added to the account, they're financially responsible. If they're authorized, they can call in.
I had that backwards.
Right, okay. So that's what I was trying to say, Bill. There's two. You can add your daughter as an authorized person on your account. She can call in, she can find out how much the bill is, find out when it's due, all of that, and not be financially responsible.
Okay,
But they can't make any change.
But yeah, they.
so there's two levels.
And we
Is
give
it
the
associated or
authorized
authorized?
or
So
added.
there's an added person that is financially responsible, that has to go through a credit check essentially, or credit evaluation of some sort. I think that's unclear today.
I do.
And I mean, we run into this.
That's why I'm going through it again. So the other one is if you're not responsible, you're only added so that you can have access and ask questions about that account and know what the balance is, know other things, but you're not held responsible for it.
Correct.
Okay,
Um,
not well known, so.
well, but I mean, I think definitionally, I think we can maybe, maybe bolster this particular paragraph a little bit, but by using definitions of what these two things are. Because I think that and then I think the other thing is, is it possible that we would need to, would we need to develop, hate to do it, exceptions, but that there are so many situations we run into with long-term, long tenured customers who've been married and the account is in one of the spouse's names. We have a death and we all know how difficult that is. And so, to go through this, are we going to also subject that? I don't know, I guess if this person had more than two late payments and they're terrible payers.
Well, so we.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, like, so if we've got a spouse that's deceased and we're trying to, they're just trying to pay the bill.
Right.
And I do feel like we make that a little more difficult. than it
Well,
probably
I'll
should
go-
be, but-
How about uncle and nephew? Okay, my uncle passed away, he lived by himself, I'm the closest relative. How do I now take care of his bills and take care of those things, because we don't want the house services turned off? So, yeah, I mean, how we ease into that, how do we make it easier for the customers to?
That was on the yes papers for, that if we do the thing where you can pay on the bill, or a lot of times people are in there and they get access to their mail when they're there, so they do have that information.
Right.
Other than that, we do have to take it out of that person's name because we cannot have a service in the name of the deceased person. So we do have to take it out of that person's name. You do have to make some changes to it. We just can't keep it in a deceased person's name.
Right, they can't continue to rack up debt. But the only thing I would caution is we have to have some safety measures because we have seen several times what you might think would be the clear cut, the descendant, but often there's a will that names someone else and they will use the utilities to try and keep someone else out of the house or, so it's hard for us.
Stuff up front that we talked about,
I'm sorry.
that'd be captured in the fraudulent information, misrepresentation that we talked about earlier.
But
It would be a material misrepresentation.
it would be, but but you may not know that answer of who's
I know.
misrepresenting or until they go to court. That's not really, we can't make the decision from an estate standpoint of who is the one making the misrepresentations. Because we don't,
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting to open BP up for more risk. I'm just asking.
No.
How do
No,
we,
right.
how do we work through these things?
And then maybe it's
I
a
know-
customer education thing, right? It's like, look, I mean, nobody thinks about it because nobody thinks about it, but we do need to educate our customers more on, make sure I mean.
Sure. I agree.
We have done some things, I was just talking to Gabby about that, because we have had people that something has happened, no one else has been on the account, and sometimes they say, I've been living here. It's like my sister, my stays with my mom, I've been living here, and so I haven't got any paperwork yet, but I want to put it in my name. So we came up with a temporary transfer. They take responsibility for the bill, and it's actually in their name at that time, but it's a temporary transfer.
Right, because then you'll get
Yeah.
the other one say, well,
Yeah,
that's.
we don't have anything.
That is her son, he's on drugs, we've been trying to get him out.
So we will do a temporary transfer. That keeps the services paid, that keeps them on, and we'll temporarily transfer it to their name. And that helps them at that. Until we receive something legal.
I will say this, I'm amazed at how clever some of our customers can get when someone is schemes and things.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our lives.
Very much. But let's not judge our entire customer.
No, I said some.
A few, we
Some.
all know how lawyers are too, Angie.
I said some, I didn't say all.
They didn't like the lawyers and I feel like we're semi-likable.
We operate.
Well, you are, but.
So
Okay, so what I have for myself there, as an action items as an action item on that particular and maybe just sort of with this whole thing, but is to come up with definitions of what, the added account holder, and boy, that just is not a good,
Maybe we should call them secondary account holder.
there we go. See, now somebody's thinking.
And we have, and in fact, that's a well-known term that we use. We look at the account, we say primary
Customers
and
don't.
secondary, but customer, we try not to do that because it's just who's been listed first and second.
Well, yeah.
Really, they both have equal.
And I was gonna say, and I don't really like to say secondary or even primary to the customer, but we do use primary because then I don't want them to think, well, this one's the one that's solely responsible. I'm just on here secondary. Because they're both responsible. It's just who we listed first and who we listed second, based on their credit.
Based on their credit. And we also have POA. You can do two, where if you have POA on account, you're not financially responsible, but you can do
Yeah, you have power of attorney, so you can do anything on the
you can do anything on the account.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left in our session today. I think we should use this as a stopping point. But I think we should try and schedule our next session, and these guys are like, are you kidding me? We're gonna go another.
We're gonna finish out 701. I know you're gonna look at that one. are you gonna look at the other two, just in 701, so we'll kind of have finished discussing that one in our last minute?
I want a time limit on that. I'm okay with, conceptually, I'm okay with it, but I mean, if later discovers 10 years later, 14 years later, you know what I mean? That concerns me. But I understand why BP would need to do that.
I'm sorry, I was reading Jeremy's text.
Last paragraph.
The last paragraph in 7.01, KCBP reserves the right to transfer any previous unpaid balance, that thing.
It can't be, or any person living at the service address. That's gotta come out.
I'm the same thing, we fight over that, so.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm not the same thing, me and you fight over that one, so.
I know.
I'm in Hurricane Janetta.
But if we add somebody to the count and we
Yeah.
find out later that they have a debt that.
That doesn't say adding to the account. That is anyone living there. So that's,
Which may be where our definition person comes in, the person who becomes financially responsible.
I think this one deserves some time.
I do, and I also think it needs to be, again, I'd like some time around it.
Just ask a question, but Jeremy said they're gonna cut off the fire line, water fire line to the building at 2 o'clock.
Here?
Yeah, for this building.
Oh,
So
I didn't know that.
they don't want to flood it.
Gotta go.
So, but the drinking water, everything else is normal.
Put in the bathroom if we need
No, it's the normal, this is just a fire line, just for the fire.
Okay.
Okay, but I don't know for how long. That was my follow-up. Okay, how long?
There it goes.
Just let Jody know if you would, the fire line would be shut off, but the normal water supply line would be kept on. Main line.
Do we still need to be in session in the meeting if we're gonna discuss the next time or not? We do. Okay. So do we want to do that? Do we want to do it via email following this? Do people have their calendars with them? Mr. Retired?
I would caution, and I know I've always said that scheduling is,
Send your text.
sort of a different exception to the Open Meetings Act, but Wendy attended a recent open meetings training, and they really cautioned about emails.
Who was the training by?
I think it was the League of Cities,
Mhm.
and they have good training on that. So I would just say that if we could pick now, it might be better.
I'm available.
Got my calendar.
March 1st? Friday?
I was gonna suggest that, that's perfect.
Came back time channel?
Up to, if that works for the staff, works for Bill, Lori, Angie?
Morning or afternoon?
Never ever on a Friday afternoon, Bill,
Sorry.
unless we're gonna meet offsite.
I can make it. I just have to move something around.
I can.
All right.
No, Rose, that's perfect for me. I have a work day Saturday, so I'll have some time I can flex anyway.
Okay.
Work or not.
Does it work for you guys? March 1? Was anybody taking PTO or anything?
Okay.
Good. 9 to 12 on March 1? Don't send out an email on it, because apparently in modern times, we cannot email for efficiency.
So like the meeting notice is fine, but and I haven't really had a chance with her to talk about it, but she said that there was very stressed.
You know, I don't reply all.
I know, and I
Don't do it.
that.
You haven't got an email about it?
Okay.
I can email away. I'm not covered.
Move to adjourn this session.
I have a motion,
Second.
a second to adjourn this special session of the policy committee. Would we take a vote, please? Roll call or what?
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry
Aye.
and Groneman,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
That motion carried.
Meeting is adjourned.